every city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtrothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is October 27th, YC127, and we've got the Alliance tournament in the background, or in the past, and the CSM election in the present, and an expansion in the near future. We are excited. This is the Eve Universe Show! Welcome, 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 guys. You know what I didn't mention in that list? A presidential election for the Gallente presidency. Still no word on that. Kind of curious that we're getting a CSM election before a Gallente presidential election, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe democracy is more alive and kicking amongst capsuleers than amongst the baseliners. But today is a special episode because today is the first day of the CSM voting system. And every year I get asked all kinds of questions about it. You know, I've done interviews in the past. You can go watch my past interviews on previous years. But like, it always boils down to like, who should I vote for? Who to vote for, et cetera, et cetera. And so like, one of the things that I've learned while doing this stream and doing this show is that you guys actually end up liking watching me go through the process. Hey, Punch! Thank you for that. $10, and also thank you to Sheesh earlier for that $10. Thank you for all the support, you guys. It's awesome. Okay, so but every year I get asked like, who are you going to vote for and all this sort of stuff, and I've done interviews before, and I've released kind of like my suggestions in the past and all that stuff. But you guys really like watching me figure something out, not just giving you guys the information. And so to that end, I am vaguely aware of all of what's going on with the CSM this year, but I have intentionally not looked into it too much, because today we're going to sit down and see if I can figure out who I want to vote for and talk about why I might want to vote for one person versus another, and hopefully maybe inform you guys as to what you might want to vote for. So let's go ahead and begin with what are we even talking about. So there is what is known as the Council of Stellar Management. This actually came from a darker day in EVE Online. Just a little bit of a backstory. Way, way, way back in the day. Hey, USSU command, CSSU command, also known as, oh shoot, my name is falling out of heads. Saw Death, who is running for CSM, by the way. Saw Death just becomes a member. So he is one of the people running for CSM. But, you know, so, okay, years ago, before I even started playing EVE Online, there was a bit of a crisis between the player base and CCP. There was, you know, this has been written about in a lot of other places, but basically this is what is known as the T20 incident, where basically there was a hacker who was meddling between the Goon Swarm and Band of Brothers, which is Bob back in the day, which were two of the big power blocks. You know, Bob was the power block at the time. Goon Swarm was kind of the up and comers. This one guy, Kagutsuman, who's a hacker, offered to help out Goon Swarm in hacking Bob. Goon Swarm said no. Bob said that they would work with him, so he hacked Goon Swarm stuff, but then Bob doesn't pay him, and so he turns around and hacks Bob's stuff for Goon Swarm for free, as like because he's pissed off at being shafted by Bob. But when he gets into Bob's leadership forums, he discovers that actually what's happening is that there is a developer. You know, this idea that like the developers are supporting the leading group is a popular accusation, but he found smoking gun evidence that one of the developers had spawned a couple of Tech2 blueprint originals. So these things were being spawned by random lottery. They are incredibly valuable to this day. They're nearly priceless. And he spawned, I think, 2 of them for Bob. And like, this was just something that was talked about in the leadership channel. And so they got that information, and this became a huge fiasco. This is what kind of led to the Great War, et cetera, et cetera. But so this developer, T20, he gets in trouble, although we don't actually know what ever happens to him. But in this kind of crisis comes this idea that CCP creates an internal investigations division to make sure that their own guys are not messing with things, but also creates the Council of Stellar Management, which is this player-run body, something that had never really been thought of before, I don't think, in like video gaming in this kind of way. But the idea is that every year we elect a group of people who function as our representatives. And while it was originally designed as almost like a watchdog group because of this situation, it rapidly evolved into what it is now, which is effectively a kind of like focus group sort of idea. So here's the deal. Every year we elect, as of right now, I believe it's 10 members, and then CCP can add 2 of their own people that they choose based on the results of the election to be on the CSM. And those people get to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which allows them to get access to information that otherwise is not available to the player base, right? So they get information about what CCP is working on months ahead of time. Obviously, this has caused some hoopla in the past about breaking NDAs, blah, blah, blah. It is a very important role, and there's a lot of trust involved in it, obviously. But these people actually get to be flown out to Iceland at least once a year and have this big meeting with all of the major developer or like project leaders and stuff. So that way they can be presented kind of where CCP is going with a lot of things. They can make their own presentations, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the more bigger kind of historical big moments for the CSM would be like, so Mike Azariah, who is running again, has been on the CSM several times before. He's one of the few people who have been able to really make a name for himself without big block support. And when he was on the CSM originally, he, advocated for the incursion community and eventually like got the addition of the Bowhead added to the game. So the Bowhead exists because of Mike Azariah's advocacy on the CSM. Another good example of this is when faction warfare was being largely ignored. Oh my God, he's a friend of mine, and now I can't think of his name. The faction warfare guy. Somebody remind me his name. Names are falling out of my head. But either way, oh my God, it's going to get me that I can't think of his name right now. But either way, there's a guy who is really big into faction warfare, who worked really, really hard to do several roundtables with people in faction warfare, get feedback from people in faction warfare, got elected to the CSM specifically to support faction warfare, and then gave presentations to CCP during the CSM meetings, very structured, pulled together all the information. And in the end, that presentation helped inspire what would then go on to be the Uprising expansion. No, not Drake. He's a streamer. He did the arena stuff a lot. Oh my God. I apologize. I can't think of anybody's names right now. God damn it. Hold on. Now I got to look up his name. I thought somebody was going to be able to throw out his name really quick. What would that be? Faction warfare. Hold on. Warfare. CSM. Not Young Puke. No. Torvald. Thank you. Not you guys. You guys are useless at giving me names, apparently. No. Yeah. So Torvald, who's a great dude, by the way. He's the faction warfare guy I was talking about. If chosen by the EVE community to serve as a member of CSM 20, that's why we vote. Yeah. Okay. So today is the first day for voting. I didn't do any interviews this year, but CCP did interviews. I have those interviews pulled up if need be. But we're going to look at the candidates and talk a little bit about it. So, like I said, so let's talk a little bit about who we might want on the CSM and who to vote for on the CSM. And let's talk about the reality of the CSM. So the reality of the situation is that a lot of the nullsec blocks organize their votes, right? This has been a big thing for 10 CSMs now, ever since the Imperium, which was then Clusterfuck Coalition, got the Mittani on the CSM a couple of times. You know, this idea of like, especially Imperium influencing the CSM by getting their people on, as many people on as possible by organizing their voting blocks, became like an important thing. And then as time goes on, especially in the last war, we saw other null blocks kind of doing the same thing. And so as of right now, we have roughly about 2 to 4 general power blocks within nullsec. Yeah, Torvald also fought to bring back the arena for almost a whole year. It sucks that it didn't get brought back, but either way. So the God honest truth is that there are 10 spots, and at least 6 of them are pretty much locked down by those blocks. A lot of people might get angsty about that, where it's like, oh, so much representation by the null blocks, etc. But the thing is that like a lot of null block representatives are relatively good representatives just in general, right? Just because they have a null block focus, which does mean that null block perspectives do get like overemphasized by the CSM. It is also true that these people are often highly engaged and involved in the game, especially when it comes to like helping out new players. A lot of null blocks support the people that help the people within their blocks. So these are people that deal with all kinds of different people and all kinds of different gameplay styles. So it's not inherently bad that the null blocks get their positions. But what it does mean is that there's those last 3 to 4 spots are incredibly important. Now, one of those 3 spots or whatever often end up being like a follow-on from like one of the later voting in the like the Imperium block vote, right? A lot of times they will side with somebody who is kind of buzzworthy at the time, but not necessarily within their block, and put that later in their thing, and they still have enough votes to get them across the finish line as well. But the point of the matter is that you might as well assume that we have only 2 to 3 actual people who the votes outside of the blocks really matter. And the biggest thing about that is that like the blocks have their block vote, which means a lot of votes go in the same direction, which means it has a lot of voting power. Which also means that the rest of the votes, just the general people that are not following block votes, are incredibly diffuse. And that only gets more problematic over time as more and more people join the CSM, the run for the CSM, right? So as of right now, I think we have 52 different candidates for the CSM, which means that the biggest risk isn't necessarily, quote unquote, the wrong person gets in or whatever, or like it's 55, sorry. It's about the vote becoming so diffuse that even somebody who might be a good person to get vote, even somebody who has some support, doesn't get across the finish line because there's such fierce competition. The other thing that's important about this, before we even go deeper into this, is the actual like structure of the vote itself. So the way it works, and we can go to your the vote page, right, is that you can actually pick, hold on, actually, I just realized, hold on, I'm not logged in. Shit. Validation code, hold on. All this work, forgot to log in. It's always something, right? Excuse me. All right. Really? Hold on. There we go. So as of right now, it shows 3 positions, but you can actually vote for as many as 10 different candidates, okay? So like, this is not my actual votes, but you can see here, like you can just drag people into different spots and you can actually drag them around and whatnot, and it'll reorder them. So the point here is that you can vote for up to 10 different people. So the way this works is basically, you know, normal voting that Americans are used to is what's called first past to post, where basically there's one vote and whoever gets the most wins. Cool. This is called single transfers vote or automatic runoff vote. So the idea is that it takes everybody's votes on their first choice vote, right? And based on that, there's a certain number of votes that if somebody gets it, that means that they win. They have enough votes to cross the finish line and make it into one of the 10 positions. And this is based on the number of votes that are being cast versus the number of candidates that are available, et cetera, et cetera. So if they get the correct enough of a majority, even on the first round, then that person gets selected. If no one gets enough votes in the first round, then what they do, or in any given round, what they do is they pick the person with the least amount of votes and they eliminate them. Now, regardless of whether or not somebody is selected or somebody is eliminated, there's going to be votes that weren't used because of this, right? So either somebody is so far past the threshold that they didn't actually need as many votes as they got in order to get past the threshold, or nobody got past the threshold, and so the lowest voted person is being eliminated. Either way, their votes then get distributed down to the next tier, or like their next likely one. So for instance, you know, if 10,000 people all vote for Gustav as a first, and Gustav wins first round, but he only needed 8,000 votes. That means that 2,000 of his votes were unnecessary for being successful. Let's say 50% of the people who voted for Gustav voted for Kenneth Field as a number 2 position. That means that 1,000 of his excess votes, so half of the excess votes, are going to go to Kenneth Field, and then they'll run it again. Likewise, if, for instance, let's pick somebody else just randomly. Let's say the Oz doesn't get enough votes to be eliminated in the first round. Nobody gets it across the finish line, and the Oz gets the least amount of votes as anybody in the first round. I'm picking him specifically because I can fairly confidently predict that that is not what's going to happen. But let's say it does. And the Oz does not get enough votes. He only gets 1,000 votes. But half of the people that voted for Oz voted for Hyper Viper 1 as their second pick. So the Oz is eliminated and half of his votes go to Hyper Viper, and the rest of his votes get distributed to his number 2 picks based on the proportionality of the votes, the next vote down from the people that voted for Oz. So either way, the excess votes, or the votes that are now freed up from somebody being removed from the pool, then get distributed down to your number 2, number 3, number 4, right? So what this means is if you're not filling up your ballot, you're kind of potentially wasting your vote. The whole point is that your vote continues to go down and cascade down your scale or down your choices until it gets consumed in some way in order to get somebody elected. And then your vote counted. So this is a good way to make it so that everyone's vote counts, and you don't have to like tactically choose like, oh, I'm going to vote for this person over this person because I really want this person to get in, but I don't think they're going to make it in. So I'm going to vote for the person who I think is actually going to be able to make it, which then makes it so even less people vote for that person that is just trying to get a shot at it, right? That is more of an outsider. So what this means in the practical is you as a non-block voter, you're not, first of all, you want to vote, you want to fill up your panel as much as you possibly can, but you want to give extra consideration to your number 1 vote, okay? It is worth it to vote your number one vote on somebody who you would like to see elected, but are not sure if they're going to get elected. Because the real critical thing here is that a lot of people who make it into that 9th and 10th slot, like whether or not they make it in versus get eliminated has a lot to do with what happens in previous cycles, right? Because if, for instance, so let's say nobody votes for Oz, like literally nobody votes for Oz as their number one choice, okay? Nobody. Not a single player. Oz gets one number one vote, his own character, because he doesn't multivox for some reason. So he gets one vote, period. But let's say he is the number 2 vote for the entire Goonswarm bracket, okay? But round 1 happens. Nobody gets in. There's not enough votes for the number 1 position. Even with Goonswarm's ballot, nobody gets in. So then Oz gets eliminated on round 1. In round 2, Goonswarm's top candidate gets picked. So all of Goonswarm's votes switch from their number 1 position, all the excess votes go from the number 1 position to the number 3 position. Because it can't go to Oz. Oz has already been eliminated. So the point of this story is to point out that, like, if there's a dark horse candidate that you want, that you really care about, you want to give them your number 1 vote. Because especially at that early stage, there's going to be a lot of people that get eliminated that would have the votes to hang on if they were, to pass, if they were able to hang on long enough for those votes to cascade down to them, right? As people's second, third, fourth, fifth vote kind of breaks down, right? And so that is a big thing. We want to pay attention to who is our top votes, because a lot of the block candidates are going to get in eventually, but it's the guys who get in for the 8, 9, and 10th position are going to get in not just because they got enough votes in the long run, but because there was enough number 1 votes to allow them to survive the first few cycles where people are getting elected and getting kicked out and stuff. Okay, so those are important pieces to know. So now let's ask about what kind of person am I looking for in the CSM? Now, this is where I think a lot of people, by the way, I want to go on and say that Oz A has been on the CSM and it is also incredibly talented. So if you vote for Oz, very cool idea. Oz also has posted his own CSM election slate. Hold on, let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I can't necessarily pull it up right now, but Oz has posted his selection slate. I will post it in chat right now. Even though there's no spaces, you'll just get to go through that list. Oops. Well, we'll see about that. Dutch Gunner says, that's how I made it. Missed out on making it to at least spot 11. Yes, exactly. Like, Dutch Gunner is a person who knows pretty firmly. Dutch Gunner is one of the reasons why I think about this a lot, because, there has been some years where Dutch Gunner absolutely would have been able to get in, or at least gotten close to an alternative, but he got eliminated early on. So, okay. Let's think about who we want on the CSM, because I think that this is where a lot of people get the understanding of the CSM wrong. Because, like, so a lot of times people think that the CSM informs CCP what's important, right? As if, like, the CSM is some sort of senatorial body that has some sort of control over CCP. This is absolutely not true. And in fact, historically, the more propagandized, the more obvious it is that CSM is just working to try to manipulate CCP to their own group's advantage, as opposed to, being a good representative for the player. Remember, the CCP can just totally ignore them. So the real threat isn't necessarily that, like, the CSM become all powerful and fuck up the game. Although there is some weird, interesting examples of the CSM influencing CCP in some complex ways in the last few years. But the point is that ultimately they only get to give more or less get to give feedback to CCP, and then CCP gets to choose however they want to deal with that. So that's why I stress that they're basically like a focus group, if nothing else. So the big thing is that, like, the CSM don't get to, for instance, when they go to the meetings, they don't set the agenda for the meeting. CCP tells them what they're going to be developed. The things that are going to be worked on next year are already pretty much sketched out by CCP. This is why CCP picks 2 of the candidates themselves, because if we don't elect somebody who is a specialist in the topics that they are interested in touching, they may just pick somebody outright. That's how Drake and Young Puke got on last year, for example, because they wanted to work on Pochvin and, you know, faction warfare, scrappy stuff, and more like, you know, PvP content like that. And so Young Puke, being one of the heads of Sedition, and Drake being one of the main dudes in Pochvin, got elected to the CSM 19, not by players, but by CCP, right? So if CCP wants somebody on the body, they can just put them on. But also, like, the biggest thing is that the reason why you want a subject matter expert is because you want to ask yourself, who do you need in the room when CCP is talking about shit? Okay? And why? Because this isn't about them pitching your idea, right? You don't have a faction, or you don't have a, we'll go with a wormholer, right? You don't necessarily have a wormholer candidate because you're trying to convince CCP to work on wormholes. That may or may not work, but that isn't really the point. The point is that when CCP is coming and presenting something to people, who do you need in the room to be like, hey, have you thought of this? Right? Like, the reason why you want different play styles recognized and whatnot is because it's really easy, with how complex EVE is, for there to be unfortunate side effects or knock-on effects due to a change, right? I pick out wormholes because wormholes are often one of the sources of this, right? You know, often CCP will make a change that seems broadly okay based on the balance of all different kinds of things, but for some reason is highly impactful to wormhole space. And wormhole space has so many weird rules and weird culture and weird, like, requirements and priorities that often CCP may not even be aware that something is the way things are done in wormhole space. And so when CCP are talking about, oh, well, we should change, you know, we should add quantum cores to the game, or we want to change the way structures work in the game, it's really nice to have somebody who doesn't have a lot, not just has a lot of experience with structures, but maybe has a lot of experience in wormholes specifically, that's able to be like, hey, that change is going to have this impact on people, and that's going to upset them. So then CCP can take in that consideration before they get too deep into its development. So this isn't necessarily about adding in people who will, like, force CCP to do what you want, right? Like, if it doesn't matter how much the candidate has walking in stations in their platform, electing them will not get walking in stations added back into the game, period. But a good example is actually, if I remember correctly, Kashal Aderon, right? So this is why historically my #1 pick has gone to somebody who is interested in the API, right? API, yeah, RIP Proving Grounds, exactly. Torvald couldn't bring back Proving Grounds. It isn't going to happen just because of the CSM election. It'll only happen because somebody at CCP wants to make it happen, not because a CSM person wants to make it happen. But either way, so if you want to know what CCP is working on, look to who they add to the CSM. Yes. And they even confirmed that during the Alliance tournament, that they usually pick the 2 people that they pick, or the people that they pick, are based on what they know is coming. Anywho, so the point is, like, my #1 pick, for example, has always been surrounding the API, because proper third-party development support is something I care about a lot for my own reasons, but also I know that without active advocacy, that will fall into the wayside. Like, we do actually need somebody in the room saying that APIs are important and that actually knows how that stuff works while people are discussing other things. Otherwise, choices could be made without that technical expertise involved in the decision making, or at least, best case scenario, the entire conversation ends up being moot because it turns out that you guys, like, the entire conversation happened with a false underlying assumption, and now it is. But we've seen CCP prioritize the ESI and the API recently, and I believe that a big piece of this has to do with the advocacy of the CSM. I'm right? It is. Hold on. No, it's sorry, Ariel Rin. Yes, Ariel Rin, not Kashal Aderon. That's we're going to be talking about the different candidates and stuff. But like, so that's my position, right? I think that the third-party API is really important, and I think that without somebody who thinks that it's really important on the CSM, it's going to fall through the cracks, because like, it has been proven that if we do not have somebody actively banging the drum, making people care about the API, CCP is really good at just ignoring it, and that's bad for everybody. Okay, even if you don't like the API, you still want somebody who knows what was going on with it, so that way it doesn't be bad, right? Even if you don't like the effects of the API, being able to kind of get ahead of that and understand it is still important for you. But either way, so that's just my example, right? So that is my methodology for how to vote. That said, let's go ahead and start looking at the candidates. Like I said, there's 50 of them. We have some, we can go look at their interviews if we want to. I'm interested in what you guys have to say about this, so please post it in chat or in the comments down below as we're going to talk about who you want to advocate for, who you want me to think about more, because all I have is what's here and then what's on their official announcement pages or whatever. If we can go check out the interviews, we can. If we need to, we can. But hopefully by the end of this, I'm going to choose who I'm voting for, and then you guys can make your own choices based on what we discover, okay? So let's jump into this. Angel Maelstrom. First of all, before we jump too deep into it, let's look at the actual CSM from last year. We have Casimir, Luke, Anian. I actually don't... It's weird because the CSM has been fairly impactful this year, but at the same time, it's been pretty quiet. But we're going to look at this, okay? So Casimir, Luke Ananin, Zintich, Anakra. I'm going to pronounce all these wrong, all these names wrong. Ariel Rin, who's that person that I was just talking about the API. The Oz, who we were just talking about, one of the market masters. Kenneth Field is a long-term guy working with CCP in the industrial changes. Sedao is a big PvPer. And then, Young Puke and Drake got selected based on CCP. What are they hiding? What do you mean, what are they hiding? Okay. Angel Maelstrom. My name is Angel Maelstrom. I'm running for CSM. I'm the CEO of Zay Mining Consortium. My mission is to help improve the industry system and help restore and maintain a better economy for capsuleers throughout New Eden. Main area of focus is aimed at high sec and low sec. So, this is one of those great examples of somebody who may or may not be a good choice for the CSM, but this is where that diffusion comes in, right? Especially people that are wanting to be high sec, low sec candidates, wanting to be mining candidates. This is going to be really, really important to have these kinds of advocacy, especially with things like Catalyst coming out with a bunch of mining changes and industrial changes. Could be very important to have somebody like this on the forum or on the CSM. I just realized I need to go to the forum posts. Hold on. I did all of this and then didn't get the forum posts of theirs. Hold on. Forums. Council of Stellar Management. Cool. So we're looking for Angel Maelstrom. This is going to take forever, isn't it? Oh no, there it is. Angel Maelstrom for CSM 20, high-sec, low-sec industry. My EVE Online story. Starting in 2016, co-founded a corp with their father. Small mining corporation in Corazor. This year returned back. Hold on. After a bit of time, I left my corp to give nullsec with fraternity a try, learning plenty while out there. This year, I returned back to his old corp, armed with everything they use to utilize. Today, we're a producer of the domain market with other surrounding regions as well, and are working to seed faction warfare markets. This could also be a really good candidate for somebody who's interested in corp projects, maybe, because that's going to be a big piece of it. From material gathering to production and logistics, market planning and analysis, combination of seeing the full picture. Why are you applying for CSM? I'm applying for a fresh view of industry. I don't know how popular this person is. But it's, yeah, not, I mean, there isn't a lot of posts on their message, but they, I mean, like, I kind of like their shtick, but we do see a lot of candidates like this in the end. I'm not sure. We'll see how far they go. Angry Mustache. So this Angry Mustache is a big name. They're from Goonswarm, so they're almost certainly, does anybody have Goonswarm's ballot right now? If you can DM me, that'd be great. But Angry Mustache is almost certainly in it. Angry Mustache is the numbers guy. You're going to see his analysis on almost every economic report. I don't always agree with his conclusions, but he is probably one of the most like prepared when it comes to like understanding and arguing on his behalf when it comes to the economy and industry and the ecology of the game. You know, regardless of whether or not you agree with his points, he comes with his arguments well-founded. So you'll at least understand it and learn something from it. Good vote. But again, he is somebody who's almost certainly going to have block support. So may not necessarily need to be your first choice. Lai, running for CSM to champion new player experience as a leader of a high-sec training corp and active FC. I've seen how strong communities keep new pilots flying. So Lai, again, another person that would probably make a good choice, but we'll see whether or not they can get enough like momentum behind them. The fact that I have to scroll this far to find it is probably not great. Wait, hold on. What was the name? Lai. Are we still going? There we go. Still wanting to revitalize the MPE, which is interesting. MPE's gotten a lot of work recently, but it is very odd that it just like stops with the mining thing and then just kind of moves on without anything. I'm hoping that the new player or the new epic arc that's coming in Catalyst kind of touches on that. But obviously a lot of people on the CSM is going to be interested in new player experience and have different opinions on what it takes to get people to stay in EVE. Rebalancing insurance so players can lose ships without being ruined. Fair ISK paths, opportunities for low SP pilots to fund their fun without endless grind. Epic arcs. We already have a new epic arc coming, so that's cool. But we don't see any real follow-up besides this person. So not a lot of momentum behind that campaign, it looks like. Hold on. Wait, did I? Wait. I messed up. What happened? Whatever. I got it now. Aquastin Augustus, Brave Collective. I'm Aquestin. I'm going to mispronounce everybody's name. It's going to be great. Your friendly neighborhood pirate, here to represent all of the outlaws and scoundrels of New Eden on the CSM. Again, not just on the surface, not 100% behind this campaign, just because there's already going to be bigger block people that are going to be representative of outlaws and scoundrels. But, you know, that's the other thing that's worth noting is that there's a lot of, like, there's a question of, like, why don't I run for the CSM, right? And the thing is that I'm not necessarily needed on the CSM. I can talk to CCP, I can make my positions known, I can influence the game how I need to. But being under NDA would make what I make as content more difficult or impossible. So, like, it's better for me to not be on the CSM than on the CSM. Like, the idea that piracy is good, actually, is not necessarily a position that requires a dedicated CSM member for, but obviously there's going to be people that get behind it and whatnot. So then it's just a question of who it is that's going to take part of that. And really it has to do with supporting small gang PvP or whatever else, right? But we're going to go look at their... dang it. Their CSM campaign thread, maybe? This is Aquastin Augustus. You can really see kind of who's more popular by who's higher up on the list on the forums, because there's people talking about it. I really wish that there was a forum post, or like the forum post was on the list. Normally in previous years when I've done the elections, like interviews or whatever, I build a whole spreadsheet based on this. Or not a spreadsheet, but like a place. Yeah, like, well, effectively a database. Did I miss it completely? Let's try one more time and then we'll be done. We'll just move on to the next person. Where? Oh, here's Angry Mustaches. We can look at that one too. I can't find it. Wait. Well. Let's just move on. I guess I can't recommend them per se. Ariel Rin. Okay, let's look at Ariel Rin. This Ariel Rin is probably going to be my top pick. And again, for the exact reasons that I've talked before. Hold on a second. Okay. For the exact reason that I've talked about before, I think personally that the API and the ESI third-party tools, like this is an ecosystem that is incredibly important for EVE Online, is largely not respected, and absolutely needs somebody who's technically knowledgeable about it in the room when the decisions are made, if for no other reason than when a new feature is being discussed, they can raise their hand and be like, is this going to be on the API? Because there are far too many features that come out nowadays that should be on the API that isn't. And so, you know, Ariel Rin is on the CSM right now. They are a advocate for third-party developers, and this year has probably been the most like advanced forward of third-party development for CCP in a long time. So whatever they're doing, I think they're doing it right. So they're probably going to be on my top recommendation, or my top of my list, but that's again because of my priorities. You can have a different person as your top person. They're probably, you might not need to put them as your top person because they are an incumbent. so they may not need all of the #1 votes, but it would be very valuable to have Ariel Rin still be on the CSM. Next, Ares Wolfblade. Typical EVE player in the sense that I've left and come back to EVE many times. I've dabbled in multiple areas: Sovnal, high sec, low sec, faction warfare, abyssals, exploration, all space, incursions, and industry in both small and scale and large. My goal is to make the game and community that not only grows, but keeps people, that takes it in and gives them purpose. Sounds good, but fairly generic. Ares Wolfblade, right? Let's see if I can just... Can I search for it? There we go. Ares Wolfblade, pirate faction lesson Sov upgrades. Allows a group to install an upgrade that would allow for pirate factions outside of one native to the current region to provide missions and LP store for a constellation. I mean, that could be cool. But again, like, don't think that voting for this person is going to get that feature in, but it is a cool idea. And that's the thing. When people talk about these kinds of ideas, it's less about like, oh my God, this is a great idea, I should elect this person, but more like, this is the way this person thinks. So again, who do we want in the room when they're discussing what's going on, right? What kind of ideas you want kind of spurred from that? Capital Exhumer's skill book. Okay. Capital Siege Drill. Escort carrier system. New pirate capitals. Fixes to faction warfare, including seagulling and AWACSing. This is one of the things I'm always suspicious about when it comes to CSM campaigns. Like, if seagulling and AWACSing was an easy fix, then CCP would have fixed it 15 years ago. What are you offering as a solution to the obvious issue of seagulling and AWACSing? I mean, I've suggested some things. I think that the best way to fix seagulling and AWACSing is really simple. Just add a flag that makes it so that you cannot earn LP for that faction for the next several hours. But, you know, whatever. I don't think that this person knows what the CSM is for. I mean, arguably, a lot of people don't know what the CSM is for. That's why we're having this discussion. A lot of people don't. Aerospeed Bounty from Fraternity. My aim is to represent all who love the game, whatever they choose to do in this big sandbox. I'm a diplomat, logistics team manager, and rental manager for Fraternity. I'm passionate about the game, creative finding solution to difficult problems, and always happy to listen to other points of view. That is actually a really interesting point about another skill set that you need in a good CSM person, because it's not just about how well they can engage with people during the idea meetings, but also how well they engage with the community. How much are they actually going to like contribute as a CSM member? How much are they going to talk to us, right? One of the great things about Mike Azariah is his like regular updates about what's going on in the CSM. That's a reason to vote for him, even if you disagree with everything else about him. Like the amount of like work he provides for us about the CSM was incredibly valuable. And so like communication skills, leadership skills, planning skills, organizational skills, the ability to host town hall meetings or whatever. These are actually incredibly useful CSM traits, far more than a cool idea about how to fix faction warfare, you know? All right. But Aerospeed Bounty. Let's see. For all who love the game. I love the game. Region infrastructure management, especially Equinox infrastructure management, sob hubs. That's where he's most noticeable or knowledgeable. There we go. He wants to apply their skills to a bigger arena, this time serving the EVE community itself. I mean, he sounds like a really honest, decent guy. It is going to be interesting to see how much Fraternity step up when it comes to trying to control the CSM and getting their people elected. This guy definitely has a lot more traction than a lot of the other people that we've talked about. And Kashal Aderon, who's another CSM person, Says, one of the reasons I love doing these player interviews is that it allows me to network and meet players I would never have otherwise. I honestly feel that Aerospeed can balance representing Frat with keeping the new player experience and other EVE communities in mind. Thank you so much for the interview. So that's really cool. Yeah, we can watch it. You can watch his interviews or whatever. I think that this is a potentially, well, hold on. I just realized. Is it a... I think it's a guy. I'm saying he, but I don't want to assume pronouns. Either way, an interesting choice. Benzman. My name is Benzman, and I'm running for CSM 20. My primary focus is to improve the overall health of low sec and content from Snuffed Out. He's towards the top of the list right now. Lives in Iceland. Tried it in 2003. Oh, so this guy is a long-term player. Lots of good interviews and stuff. Snuff, I mean, like, people want to criticize Snuff a lot, and, you know, I'm one of them. But they are one of the most knowledgeable and active groups of low-sec control. Like, they play the game at its highest level, like controlling low-sec real estate and assets and value. It's not for nothing. It's not just to be shitty people. They're doing it because they make unbelievable amounts of money off of it, and therefore are playing kind of low sec at its highest levels. So definitely an interesting pick, especially since, like I said, they have a lot of momentum behind them. So this is a good person where, you know, your vote could easily help them get over the edge if this is the kind of thing that interests you. Bexney Songweaver. As an industrialist, sometimes J-Spacer, high-sec player, passionate about making industry work, especially planetary interaction. That's an interesting idea, since, like, planetary interaction is one of those things that CCP keeps dabbling with, but then not actually, like, doubling down on. So that might be a good thing for somebody to be advocating, but, like, advocating for the PI isn't, like, a hot take. So, but they're calling out little UI UX improvements to the PI. This is actually really good stuff. Obviously, this could be a note to the little things thing, but like being on the CSM is definitely it is an amplifier of your voice. If nothing else, then it causes somebody to feel not motivated, but confident in their own positions enough to advocate for this stuff aggressively. So, you know, this stuff would definitely just be good, potentially good PI improvements. But again, like, do you really want to elect somebody to the CSM to get a time slider to the PI system? It'd be more of a question of, like, as more things are being developed, what are we thinking about when it comes to PI? How can we improve PI? Which there has been a lot of reward to PI before, so this could be a good position to have. Does look like they have at least some traction, or at least they're responding to the very different stuff. High-sec minor ganking is a problem. It kills the game for new players. I was in a new bro crope at the start of my EVE career. Many new players gave up being repeatedly attacked by one person who had a stack of catalysts in a system or two away and potted them back there. The problem is that the classic law problem, you can't interview before someone does a crime. Gate station access should be locked for 1 hour in 0.5 space to 1 week in 1.0 space. That's a little extreme. Flip side of that is that high sec should be probably be smaller. Yeah, these are, I don't know if I necessarily agree with these kinds of positions. I'm a strong believer that, like, rather than criticize high sec ganking, you should look at high sec ganking as a mechanic that people can deal with. Bertus from Absolute Will, that's Absolute Order, so already a red flag. Representing the logistics pilots everywhere, unsung heroes of many a fleet, all we ask is to be given the chance to be known. Okay. So people can disagree with me. I'm happy to hear it. Okay. Okay. I was literally just about to say, like, if anybody wants to speak differently, then that's fine. But my first take from him isn't necessarily great. And like Logi on kill mails is by far like one of the easiest positions for somebody who wants to try to advocate for something on the CSM to go for. But I already have somebody in chat that's saying that they're a good dude, so that's worth noting. Let's go ahead and look at this. I met with Bertus, not a red flag, as he put in his hat on his own. As he put in his hat on his own accord, his alliance is not the greatest. Okay, cool. So let's not. Thank you. So we got from Sawdeath and from Machiavellian Torture, which is, or sorry, Machiavellian Overture, which is. Your name is also kind of, no, I'm just kidding. But like the big thing about this is even if he is a good dude, that his alliance is going to work against him. There's going to be a lot of people that are just not going to vote for him because of the alliance that he is in. And even though he can say that he doesn't approve of it or whatever, and I think that he would probably have a good position. He's a Air Force disabled combat veteran, which of course, as an Army combat veteran, I can appreciate. I don't know how well this campaign is going to do, just because his alliance is going to work against him. Hold on a second. My son continues to struggle to do well, or to participate in school. It's been a big reason why my content is inconsistent, but I just had to tell him, like, no, you have to stay at school, man. All right. Either way. All right. Let's keep going before that falls apart. All right. College Kid. An attempt to make Eve what it once was and to strive for a better universe for us all to be part of. I want to see excitement come back to our beloved game and universe and do what I can to see it happen. That automatically is a red flag to me, just because, like, honestly, in a lot of ways, Eve Online is better than ever. This idea of, like, make Eve great again is always going to be like, okay, well, what exactly is your problem? But let's go ahead and look. Downloaded it in early 2000s. Oh my God, wall of text. I think I can contribute to the game with my views. Kicking over sandcastles. Quality of life updates. The better management of ESI. Missions and reward remap. Oof, that's okay. Trade route revitalization and structure timers. I do think that these are a good idea, but I think a different system is needed. The present system is abused way too much. I mean, I can kind of see some of his positions. I think that this is kind of a overall weak campaign, and this wall of text is not helping anything. Eleanor asks their questions. Vanguard. Yeah, I'm not necessarily, nothing's inspiring me from this campaign. He's not there for the attention, only for his bid. Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I assume that I'm trying to take everybody kind of at its surface level, right? Who's advocating for original sidebar icons? That's it. Yeah, that's right. What is it? One issue voter must bring back jukebox. Kratos. a candidate for all your low-sec, null-sec needs. That is not enough information. Oops. A breath of fresh air. Areas of expertise, low-sec, null-sec, and alliance tournament. Okay. A more well-rounded understanding of PvP in the low-sec, null-sec environments than pretty much any candidate out there. But here's the problem with running on your knowledge of PvP and small gang fights and blah, blah, blah. Like, I know so much about the mechanics. Okay, but do you know more than Satonia? Because Satonia is already in the conversation, right? If you don't know the mechanics better than Satonia, then what are you really advocating for, right? That's my question. I've done years doing AT and hunting super capitals. I decided to run for the CSM this year because I got to a point in my life that allowed me to do so. I do appreciate the fact that they're being sober about their ideas of what it takes to be on the CSM instead of just like a free ticket. Low-sec regions in the game that are not part of faction warfare are heavily underutilized. That's true. Aside from the occasional mining and plethora of metanoxes, there's not much to do. I think that Gold Rush is going to play into this pretty well. So that actually could mean that, you know, he's a good person to talk to. NPC null-sec changes similar to null-sec. NPC null regions remain likewise underutilized. I actually disagree with that completely. Metanox PvP. Metanoxes in low-sec are in theory a good source of conflict, but in practice there are not many that die compared to how many are up across the game. I don't think that that's necessarily a great metric to go by, but I would be interested to hear his argument fleshed out. Moon mining, the one effect of metanoxes was the tanking of R4 prices. I think metanoxes should be limited to harvesting R8 and higher. I don't think so, just because most of the R4 mining is in, like, the idea of putting a metanox on a R4 becomes increasingly less worth it when you increase the value or the amount that it takes to run the metanox. I think just removing R4s from them kind of defeats the entire point, especially with things like wormholers being able to use metanoxes. Citadels hesitant to fight for strategic assets when a keepstar is the cost of a titan. It's not shocking people will not commit to a super capital fight over it. I disagree with that. I think that a lot of times people don't fight because of politics, right? Like, people are, when people get mad at each other and actually go to war, they burn plenty of structures. Like, the fact that these things don't get burned has more to do with nips and stuff than anything else. Alliance tournament prize ships. I have strong opinions that we should be allowed to use AT prize ships in tournaments. I actually strongly agree with that. Although the flagship thing is kind of taken over. Especially the last match. If you haven't watched the AT this year, it was really fun. We might actually go back and watch some of it later this week if we can. But yeah. One thing I wanted last year was to add bookmark folders and larger capacity within those folders. Yep. I mean, always something worth advocating for. Siege mode for carriers. Wait. I always love CSM campaigns that make me wonder whether or not they actually know how the game works. But that's why doesn't that give a big advantage to previous winners? It does give a big advantage to previous winners, but AT ships are often relatively fragile. I mean, they're not battleships, they're cruisers and frigates. And so there becomes like when somebody brings out a AT ship, the fight suddenly becomes more about killing the AT ship than about winning the round, which becomes kind of funny. But like in one of the last matches in the AT this year, we saw the one team, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but we see one team kind of going all in to kill the other team's AT, or not AT, but flagship at the expense of losing the round itself. But, you know, when an AT or when a flagship is 170 billion ISK each or so, you know, you can see why people do that. All right, either way, that's Kratos. Drake Idion. So Drake Idion is a friend of the channel. He is probably one of the most knowledgeable people in Pochfin. I have previous interviews with him. I've historically called him the most evil man in Pochfin. He was the guy who really pioneered the idea of seaguling in Pochvin. Hold on. Yeah. But that just means that he understands the mechanics extremely well. He lives in Pochvin. He is a panther and a fucking, not the marshal, but the python. Yeah. That he gets tons of kills with. He's an incredibly knowledgeable guy and gives really good analysis of, like, on the fucking monthly economic reports and stuff. So Drake Ideon, I would say, is one of the people that I'm going to recommend be at least on your voting block. I'm not going to say first or second or whatever, but like Drake is probably one of my favorite people on the CSM that isn't involved with the API. And, you know, even occasionally he doesn't break NDA. And when he does break NDA, he apparently does it in such a way that doesn't get him in too deep of trouble. No, he's learned some pretty valuable lessons on what he should and shouldn't speak about when he's on the CSM. I'll say that. Dujek One Eye from Brave Collective, seeking re-election to the CSM after a fun and productive term. Did they actually get on the last time? Hold on. Oh, yeah. So this is Brave's guy from the CSM. I actually don't know anything about him. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about him. Okay. Like, for instance, how to spell his name. Oh, D-U-J, not DJ. D-U-J. My qualifications, perfect attendance for all CSM meetings. That's actually really important. Spent hours on most days answering direct messages from players. Proven track record representing players from all aspects of EVE. Reasonably active in several Discord communities. Work together with a group, well in a group, and also to help other people work well in a group too. Several issues I presented to CCP got fixed. Some of them major, like following up on long-standing bugs. I'd really like some better examples of that. Tujek is a person with honors, but may not get into CSM 20. Well, Sawdeath is saying that they're a good person, but may not get in. So it might be worth, even though they're an incumbent, for you to put them higher up on your list. So that way they do get in, if that's what you're interested in. Several quality of life improvements I asked for or suggested by people who reached out were implemented. For example, configuring skyhooks from the browser, showing the correct number of days and notifications when changing Citadel reinforcement timers, being able to return to the market by clicking on completed orders, and more. These are kind of simple things, but what this shows me is that regardless of what their positions are as a CSM person, which it sounds like they have some pretty decent positions, they put in the work, which is great. So weapon tier aside, definitely something that we could use. New player experience expansion, obviously important. Areas of space, improving how different areas of space fight each other. I really like that idea. Capital escalations, that's something CCP is always focused on, especially right now. Cheaper spaceships through CCP-owned balance patches. Not sure exactly how that plays into things. And making soft fights fun. Good luck. Helen. I've been in the game for about 3 years. I've worked with a lot of new players. Actually, let's go back to my voting thing, and we're actually going to remove these guys. We're going to work on order later, but we're going to say who we see, who we've already seen that we like. So, Tujek, I like him. He's not going to get my #1 spot, but he'll probably get on my ballot. We'll make sure Sawdeath is at least on there. You're definitely not getting my #1 spot. Sorry, but you know, I appreciate you giving it a shot. Drake is going to be on there for sure. We'll just put Mike on there too, but we'll get to him in a minute. Angry Mustache I would put on there, but like I said, I have no concern that he's going to get in if he wants to. Ariel Rin. Ariel Rin is my #1 vote because she's the API person. All right, let's keep going. Engard. Oh, sorry. Ellen Helen. I've been in the game for about 3 years. I've worked with a lot of new players. I understand their pain points, their problems, and reasons why they leave the game. I want to improve the gaming experience. I'm also interested in NPC space and wormhole space. Places where small groups can grow and challenge the leaders. Ellen Helen. Oh, God, that's Russian. Right. So this is one of the Russian speaking candidates, which is not a reason to completely dissuade them. There is a big Russian speaking community, and so often they will get a Russian speaker in as a candidate. They also haven't really touched the career agents much. Yeah, that's true. Small groups. Wait, multi-boxing. There are two types of content in the game. One that scales well with multi-boxing, and ones where the Windows focus is too high, requiring 200% effort for only a few players to multi-box. These two types of content need to be balanced based on their presence in the game. It is absolutely unhealthy when semi-AFK earning is widespread, or when content offers no challenge or competition with other players, only routine. Of course, the reward for activity and difficulty should be commiserate with the effort. I wouldn't say unhealthy per se. I think that there's a place for it in the game, but it does need to be balanced for sure. Kashal, in my opinion, has definitely made 1v1 interviews for each candidate. If I am in CSM 20, I'll definitely like to work with her, and if necessary, Mike Azariah. I'm not sure what that means. No, Kashal Aderon is a MVP of CSM. That's for sure. I haven't really been paying that close attention to CSM this year, and I know that. All right. Engard from Pandemic Horde. Hi, I'm Engard, CEO of Reason for Treason, FC and Horde, former Low Second Thera resident. My campaign points are improving corp management and the way corps drive gameplay into EVE, ensuring future changes ensure good levels of skill expression and moderate power projection in a healthy way. I mean, obviously, improving corporation management is something that's really important right now in in EVE Online, and CSM has been working on it quite a bit. Or sorry, CCP has been working on it quite a bit, so it might be good for us to have a voice for that. What happened? Clicked on the wrong one. Also known as Gordo, CEO of Reason for Treason. So again, this is probably going to be one of the Horde candidates for election. So probably we'll get a lot of support from Horde. Skill expression. My biggest idea Eve is how to ensure that new mechanics and changes ensure a low barrier of entry and a high skill ceiling. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. That's why I like command destroyers and such. Conflict drivers. Skyhooks are too influential and painful to bash. Metanoxes are awesome conflict drivers, but could use a tweak. I mean, it sounds like he's a very knowledgeable person. CSP has indicated their desire for this to be the new mission MPE, which is a very interesting concept and makes EVE more player-driven for freelance and core projects, which is good. But we need to avoid more deliver items doesn't actually deliver items debacle. And I think the CEO and corp leader who has to put in the work and recruit and motivate membership. It is true that it would be very useful for us to have a person in the CSM that actually gives a shit about freelance and corp projects, like directly, like makes it into their thing. Because there's a lot of nuance to it and noticing the little details. Like there's a lot of little tiny bugs in it that needs to be hammered out. I will say Militant Arc Trooper could be there for attention, even though his intentions during the interviews I participate with it are unknown at this point. No, I mean, he wants to impact the game. So I'm sure if he can get in, he would love to. He also probably is very aware that he's a Dark Horse candidate. Fluffy Neko. If you vote Fluffy, I'll stand for all the little annoyances this game has. Have you ever tried typing in hieroglyphics? Well, you cannot. I will have this and more fixed. Do I want to take this post seriously? It's hard to. Hold on. Like the stream, consider becoming a supporter or a member because, whew, I am sorry that my real life always gets in the way of things. Okay, so Fluffy Neko. Worms and wormholers, incursions, home fronts, ratting in general. I'm not aligned with any block or big ass corp. I'm having it very difficulty taking this guy seriously. And the problem is that, like, if he's not going to take it seriously, then I don't know if anybody else is. So it is what it is. We'll have to see. Frippy from Get Off My Lawn. Wow, I haven't seen that name in a while. Hi, I'm Frippy, CEO of the Nullsec Corp Rebellum in Get Off My Lawn. I believe I would be a suitable candidate for CS. When was the last time Get Off My Lawn was relevant? I'd be a suitable candidate for CSM 20, and I'm eager to maintain the quality of EVE and its community by listening to and spreading the voices of newer players that you can have your voice heard. The CEO of a Nullsec Corp getting elected is spreading the voices that new players can have their voice heard? I'm not sure about that. Frippy. Nullsec's new kid on the block. What? Been playing EVE daily since 2024. So 18 months of gameplay. Interesting. I mean, if anybody can advocate for him, then maybe. But like, now Frippy has potential for new bros, in my opinion. Hope his campaign goes well. Interesting. Interesting. I don't know. I feel like yep. There's Zoria. I think Skyhook rating mechanics should be reversed to how they initially were, as this was a great content generator and gives small and large groups target. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Oh, look, nobody wants me to stream right. All right. Carriers can assign fighters again. This is very much a lot of like, what's weird. Okay. So what's interesting about this is that you have a guy with less than 2 years in the game kind of talking about how everything needs to go back to the way it was. Inherently skeptical of that. But a lot of people seem to be positive about them. So there you go. What do I know? Get off my... Hold on. I gotta look this up real quick. Hold on. We're gonna go to Dotland really quick. I haven't heard of Get Off My Lawn in a long time. They have less than 1,000 members right now. It's not even the original one. They do have sovereignty in Innsmother. Fair enough. All right. Well, aren't they part of Imperium? Either way. Gideon Zendikar from Desync. My main focus on the CSM would be projection issues that lead to a stale meta in Sov Nullsec that has been pushed nearly all medium non-block aligned groups out of Nullsec and have diminished the variety of content available to the average pilot. Oh boy, complaining about projection issues. That is some old school. Who is this? Gideon? Projection issues is always one of those highly controversial positions to have. GID. GID? Not even on the first page. Are they here at all? Hold on. There we go. Fixing a stale meta. This post reads that like it's from 2019. PvP Corp Boss. I have a few of his corpses in Pravi. Seaguling is an easy fix. Give highest payout to people who contribute the most and lesser amount to parasites. I mean, that is a solution. I don't know whether or not it's necessarily going to work. I think that a big piece of it is going to be, like I said, if you AWOX, you just get cut out from money. Like, I think it's okay for people to share the rewards for sites. And, like, I don't think that seaguling is a huge problem in faction warfare as much as AWOXing. But that's just, I guess, my position. Either way, Gideon, Legacy Coalition as an FC in Invictus during the Winter War versus Frat. So very experienced FC. During past CSM campaigns, change in Celebexes, risk versus reward, low sec raid mechanics, player retention. Gideon is almost certainly a good choice for people that want to back him. Skyhooks provide an ad hoc interaction point with locals living in the area. Should no locals exist, it gives them a space value for roamers and raiders to fight over those income faucets. During my roams and interaction in nullsec and Skyhooks, grids have given me reliable content source, not just with local inhabitants, but other raiding groups to help non-faction warfare low-sec gain more active player base that could develop. A raiding type mechanic should help revitalize the barren areas of low-sec. You mean Gold Rush? Gold Rush, right? So that's already coming. Ooh. Gustav Manfred. Playing since 2009, I have an expertise in many areas of the game, mostly PvE and PvP focused, or some PvP focused. I have a lot of experience in Abyss and Proving Grounds, also did faction warfare and other stuff too. Strong focus on bringing back Proving Grounds. This is actually a big one. Gustav Manfred, pretty active member of the community for a long time. Does he stream? Can't remember if he streams or not, or just is like really active in streamers' channels. Oh yeah, he's an Eve partner. Yeah, great. So yeah, a content creator who's done a lot of stuff. Because I want to be somehow involved in the development process and able to give some solid feedback in various things. I want to help make this game better, place for everyone. So there's two reasons why you want to vote for this guy. One, we were just talking about the Proving Grounds, the Abyssal PvP area. I think that, like, to kind of go against what I was saying before, continuously electing somebody who will always go up to CCP and be like, why aren't you bringing Proving Grounds back? Like, we do need that. If you want Proving Grounds to come back, we will need to have somebody always on CSM that's always at least going to be willing to say, like, hey, we should bring Proving Grounds back. And hopefully be able to push that into something that actually makes sense for people, especially as things like the Alliance tournament has become more popular and stuff. Like, the Proving Grounds has a lot of valuability. Why remove content? Because it required a lot of active maintenance. Like, each individual Proving Ground session had to be constructed by the events team. Basically, the question is like, well, why remove events, right? Like, there are other events that have been removed. Why remove Resource Wars? Well, they didn't actually remove Resource Wars. They just removed the Empire events, which was the last time that we had Resource Wars. You get what I'm saying? But so, like, having somebody be like, hey, Resource Wars are really good, you should definitely find an excuse to bring them back into the game, is a good way to get him be brought back into the game. Same with Proving Grounds. Also, Proving Grounds was somewhat controversial, especially back then, because, like, there has been historically some pretty strong pushback against things that are not in the open world. And the Abyss in particular, like this idea of like instant stuff and the idea that people can jump into fights instantly. But I think the Proving Grounds has been historically pretty popular, especially when they started going around themed ones. But that does require a lot more work for CCP to make happen. And more work means we have to have developers that actually care to make it happen. And Gustav, I think, honestly, I'm going to put Gustav on my list. I'm not 100% sure where he's going to go yet, but he's definitely going to be on my list. Hyper Viper 1 from Goonswarm. My area of expertise revolves around building space castles, understanding how small alliances work, and their struggles to build up an alliance. That's right. Hyper Viper 1 from Goonswarm Federation knows how to form a small alliance. Let's go and look. I think they've run before. I think I've interviewed them before. Haven't I? Oh, yeah. I almost certainly have. Man, I don't remember my takeaway from it. But if I remember correctly, they were like really good. He's a very competent person, I think. Oh my God. Hold on. All right. Oof. All right. CCP is the problem by letting these players stay in the game. In any others, they'd be thrown out and banned for life. Okay, well, apparently there's a lot of people that don't like him for some sort of reason. I guess they're just hating on him because it's he's from the Imperium, but also apparently there's accusations of doxing. Okay, whatever. Not even going to dip into that one. Idier, from Barcode. I've been playing Eve since 2007, primarily focused on small-scale PvP. I've played in low-sec wormholes and null-sec space. My goal as your CSM representative is to support CCP's communication with the community. That's actually a really good position to have as a CSM. An urge for more community feedback to be included as a developmental priority. I think that we're actually doing pretty good at that right now in this current phase of CSM or CCP development. Bad accusations without concrete evidence is no place in Eve. Well, I don't. First of all, baseless accusations definitely has a place in Eve. Second of all, I'm not going to dig into too much of whether or not it's evidenced or whatever per se. I don't have time to dig too deep into every single person today. That's why I'm kind of trusting you guys to put any feedback that you guys have as well. Okay, so 8 years did run last year. Since I ran for CSM 19 last year, I feel that CCP has improved their communication with the community dramatically. I agree with that. TLDR, CCP is doing a much better job at communicating this year. We need a CSM that encourages that to continue. I'd like to push for more consistent iteration across the systems. It really sounds like this guy likes kind of what CCP is doing right now and just kind of wants to continue to emphasize and reinforce that idea, which is pretty good. I like it. And Drake says that he's an incredibly skilled pilot. So definitely worth your consideration. Also recommended by Young Puke. So I take back everything positive I said. I'm joking, kind of. I'm not worried about scamming in game. Hold on. Everybody wants to say hi today. Okay. Talented tutor. Best candidate I've seen so far. So yeah, he's Small gain content is the reason for everyone involved to undock. It brings people out of stations and into space. With the proper incentives, small gain content becomes a medium gain content. I agree a lot with that. And I think that giving better rewards for sites and stuff, especially evergreen sites in LowSec, would be a pretty valuable piece to that, I would say. But I'm not sure if that's necessarily what he's advocating for here, but could be a good guy on the CSM, but at the same time could also fade into the background of all of the different candidates, I fear. Hyper Viper is competent, in my opinion, meets the standards for CSM 20. Good to know. Jenstina from Shadow Cartel. Just call me Jan. Okay, Jan. I've soaked up time in high, low, spooky wormholes and null security space since 2008, looking for fostering quality of life improvements for existing duders, along with increasing the player base as a whole. Good position to have. Where's Jan? Started playing in 2005. Lots of different stuff. Long story, wall of text. Liquid bread leads to opportunities. Essential services side of public infrastructure for past 7 years. Being a part of an on-call cycle at the time. I'll be contact. I mean, it looks like a pretty generically but useful CSM candidate. Good thoughts about with all the interactions over the past few weeks. I thought I'd be prudent to update this thread to reflect what I've been advocating for. Discoverability is actually a really good thing for them to have their #1 argument for. That already makes me like them. Player retention, like solid campaign, just in general. Sadly, not as much traction as I would have thought. But very, very thoughtful campaign. Joga. I'm Jolanga Jonga, an Alliance Director of Fraternity, CEO of Arknight Corporation, and Alliance Fleet Commander, one of the largest manufacturers within Fraternity. Okay. But, like, why would you be good on the CSM? Make nullsec life better? Improve Alliance management systems by extending recently introduced mission systems to Alliance level and addressing issues like LP tax rates via ASI. I mean, good stuff. What's your approach to the AWOCs and faction warfare? That's a good question. Does not answer it. I don't know if I'm going to take this person seriously. They don't look like they're overly taking it seriously. And it looks like they... I mean, like, if they're with Fraternity, then they'll either get elected by Fraternity or probably not. Kakala. Freedom through efficiency. Strength through responsibility. A freer state for a stronger frontier. Empower the pilot. Strengthen the state. Kaldari Citizens Assembly Corporations. Okay. The Kaldari have enough advocates within CCP, in my opinion. Are they not even on the list? Hold on. It could be an RP person, but I don't know if that's necessarily a great... Like, it's not necessarily great to run in an RP position, because you need to advocate for multiple sides of things. Like, we don't need a Kaldari advocate. And it'll probably push off a lot of Glente people. But I don't even see their... their post. Oh, it's just called CSM campaign. Yeah. Apparently it's short and written by ChatGPT. So congratulations. I'm not... You've gotten more consideration from me than you put into it. Why do you think CCP is biased towards Caldari? Oh, that's a whole topic. Now, Jeff, I will admit that it's mostly a meme, but it is a meme that I like to, that I go back to a lot. I originally joined the game in 2004 for the RP because of the cinematic. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's good reasons to play the game. I'm just saying, like, as a CCP, or as a CSM representative, we don't need somebody that's, like, arguing in favor of Caldari. Because, like, in favor of, against what? Like, what are you going to advocate for? Oh, the Raven Navy issue isn't as valuable as the Dominic's Navy issue. We need to balance the Caracal Navy issue, etc., etc. Like, whatever. Fuck. Like, I don't know. Kane Carnifex. I think roleplay in general needs more love. I absolutely agree with that. But getting people to vote on their roleplay is iffy, is all I'm saying. Caldari should get rid of all of Galente space for one. Yeah. Exactly. How do I get the page you're on? The announcements page with all of the people is right here. People actually worth it. Oz, Young Puke, Sawdeath, Mitch, Drake, Dujek. I agree with most of those, but I also think that I would add a couple other people on there, which we've talked about, some of them. All right, Kane Carnifex from Brave Collective. From High Sec to Null Sec to Low Sec to Null Sec to Wormholes to Brave, Inquirious Delve, and last but not least, Tenerifus, a journey of 14 years as a German capsuleer, active Alliance tournament enjoyer, #1 bounty hunter on Just About for Eve. That's actually pretty cool. That means that they're pretty big in the Eve community support and content creation, potentially. Kane Carnifex. Is there a whole universe and we don't have competition league between the 4 major factions? Yes, we have the AT, but this is one time per year and a huge work backlog. In-game tournament systems and homage to Earl's Arena. Take all the good stuff and change the bad stuff. Different monthly themes in honor of the AT and other upcoming tournaments. I do like the idea of continuing to think about competitive fighting, like Proving Conduits, tournaments, etc. Fastest warp into the standards of AAA Tittle? What? For example, full voice video lines for all interaction aspects of Eve. That's a big ask. Unless you're going to be okay with AI. I swear to God. All right. So, but also, I believe, like, he seems pretty knowledgeable. He's been helping out with brave newbies in the dojo, so good stuff there. Oh yeah, this guy's put in a lot of work. My 3 wishes: full voice video lines interactions for all aspects of Eve. Again, I've advocated for this before, but I think that a lot of it's going to have to be accepting the fact that you're going to use AI audio or AI speech in order to get it done, and likely have it this is why I've advocated more stuff with Aura, right? Because if Aura reads you the missions, then you only have to figure out one voice, and Aura can now communicate for you for other people. But yeah, verified, qualified, certified beginner corporations, always a tricky thing for people to advocate for CCP to do. Love, passion, dedication to events and storylines. Sure. Pedro's principle gives some AAA love. It deserves it. Grandfather of games. What? Arena medal. I mean, I like his stuff. Dejuk says Kane Carnifex is a rare type of person who finds himself in entertaining situations and has amazing stories to tell just by being himself. He is infected, unbridled enthusiasm for what he does, and even my non-Eve playing friends have heard stories of his antics. He's a great pilot, organized fun events. You know what? I'm convinced. I think that he should be on the CSM. He's got good ideas. He's got lots of stories. He's got lots of experience, probably with very edge game stuff. Although his take on Vanguard is kind of mid. I'm going to put him on my list. Probably not towards the top, but definitely on my list. Who is it? Kane Carnifex. Kane Carnifex is one of the art dudes besides Rick Javix. Great. I will admit I'm really bad with names, so some of these people could be very well. Some of these people could be people I've talked to before and done interviews for. Doesn't mean I remember their like everybody's name and who they are. I'm very bad about that. So that's one of the reasons why this this whole process is kind of fun. Captain, hold on, let me close some of these extra windows now. Captain Tiberius from Kitchen Sinkhole. I am the irate wormholer with brutal, sarcastic tendencies who scrammed-webbed you in a custom skin bait skiff. I want your vote. Wormholers always could use good advocacy, although they have a tendency to now hire them to get elected. A vote for captain is a vote to shake up the status quo. More bookmarks for wormhole corporations, quality of life tweaks, nullsec changes to break up the blue donut. We'll see how that works. Skinner changes, quality of life. That's true. Need more design save slots. 125 is not enough. Put Naxium back some wormholes. Makes sense. But I don't see a lot of discussion on his post. He didn't even respond to Eleanor's post. So that makes me sad. Especially as a wormholer, you're going to need to like rally the wormhole vote. So unless he's done that, I don't think it's going to work. Kenneth Feld. Okay. Somebody I know about pretty well. Okay. So Kenneth Feld is an old school CSM guy. He's also pretty big in, if you guys remember, Talking in Stations, that old that podcast show place, whatever. Kenneth Feld has been incredibly active in making that place make any kind of sense, especially during like the last big war and other stuff like back in 2020 and stuff. Most notably, he was CSM during the last major industry changes. So he had his fingers in the pie quite a bit with the industry changes that brought the industry program to be kind of where it is right now, with the idea of like reinforced carbon fiber and all of those different pieces that are required for pirate ships and capital ships and stuff now, and battleships to kind of make it a stepping point between T1 and T2. That was a lot of like, he was actively involved in a lot of that stuff, and he's always wanted to kind of get back in to help push things further down. He is very much like an institutional industrialist. And so, you know, his advocacy is very useful for that sense, and he has a lot of experience with CCP in that sense. So I guess my point is that if you're an industrialist, you should do a little bit of homework to see whether or not you like Kenneth Feld or not. And if you do, you should vote for him. And if you don't, you shouldn't vote for him, because he's very influential when it comes to industry planning. Kashal Aderon. Kashal Aderon, founder of New Eve Rookies and CEO of Worm Life. For CSM 20, I'm running on getting players to undock. I know it doesn't sound as flashy as some of the other candidates' campaigns, but let's face it, if people didn't undock, we wouldn't have content. We'd all be in station spinning ships. So let's see what we can do to support other players' experiences, communities, and ensuring pilots to have a reason to undock and fly. Kashal Aderon has become one of the most MVP of the CSM in the history of CSM. I almost don't even care what their positions are, although they are constantly in the news when it comes to helping kind of like scope out expectations or player understanding and stuff. They've been doing all of the interviews for all of the other candidates, which is pretty insane to have. Like, not only is it insane to do interviews as a person that have done CSM interviews before, the amount of time, effort, and coordination it takes to run all of those interviews is immense. While doing it for running for CSM yourself is insane. So I would argue that definitely worth your consideration. And hell, just go watch all of their interviews and see what they think about things and how they interact with everybody. But yeah, it's definitely on my list of positive people. Aren't they on the CSM right now? Am I crazy? Did they wait? I thought they were. I feel crazy. Okay, so she was on CSM 17. Is that right? Okay, they did interviews for CSM 19. I feel like I don't actually know who this person is that well, or like I haven't paid that much close attention to them, but all I hear is good stuff. So I'm just going to put her towards the top of my list and trust the world on that one. I thought they were already on CSM. They do all of this without being on CSM? Limited liability. I'm campaigning on 2 issues. Wealth inequality is making it harder to have fun in low-stakes engagements, and the game could be doing a better job of realistically marketing itself to new players. I mean, those are interesting points, but what do you have to actually say about it? Promotion. You know, there used to be a thing where you could get a buddy code, right? But it was like we could make a corp buddy code. So that way I could put that out and people could use that buddy code, and then the corp gets the resources and the bonuses for that thing. And when the person used that code, they automatically get dropped into that corp when they create their character. I've always thought that was a great idea by CSV Siegel. Never got implemented. Wish it would. Monetization. I am also a wormholer, but I cry if somebody doesn't scan the change for me. Okay, cool. Not a whole lot of traction on the campaign. Machiavellian. Hey, is that the guy in chat right now? Nullsec Resident, Umbrella, FC for Pandemic Horde, and Guide for new players to Nullsec through Horde's Newbie Initiative. I seek frequent, reasonable balanced palaces, collaborating on improvements in all regions of space, and giving people reasons to go out and blow things up. Okay. I was wondering when people were going to complain that Plex prices have gone down. I was wondering when that was going to start. I mean, he's got a cool, if slightly ChatGPT image made. No, probably not. I'm joking. 19 years ago. Ugh. New Bean Initiative, expertise, my positions, conflict drivers. I always get really nervous when Nullsec starts talking about conflict drivers. Solve mechanics have lagged behind the others in changes to Nullsec. Their current iteration leads to sprawl and stagnation. Even small changes to solve mechanics will breathe new life into Null. Waste is a waste. Bring back capital mining. Buff expedition frigates and porpoises. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with porpoises and orcas with the gold rush. You know, the more I look at this, the more I wish I had an opportunity to sit down with all these interviewers in the last week to be like, what's your thoughts on the next expansion? And the fact that they aren't posting things about their reactions to Catalyst tells me that they're not taking this as seriously as I'd like them to. I don't know what else to say. Did play Operation Nemesis for Vanguard. Seems cool. Don't know if this is the same person that was talking in chat earlier. Very competent person. I'm not going to say anything negative about it. When was the submission deadline for all this? Oh man, all of the... Hold on. Candidate submissions was the 23rd of September to the 7th of October. Maybe they did. No. That's what I'm saying. Like, no, I'm not saying like when they made their post, they didn't have anything about Catalyst, but we're looking at forum posts, right? So the point is that these CSM candidates have not posted their thoughts on Catalyst in their forum thread about them, about their candidacy, which is what we're looking at live, right? Or at least many of them haven't. The people I'm criticizing haven't. All right. Criticism, yeah, either way, whatever. I'm just saying, as a armchair campaigner, Mick Fightmaster from No Vacancies. Hello, my fellow encapsulators. I'm Mick Fightmaster, a current CSM 19 rep for Wormhole Space, CSM 20 hopeful. Is that true? Hold on. I swear to God, I have no idea who's on the CSM anymore. Yeah, there he is, right there. This unique area of space has more to offer to EVA ecosystem. Let's carry this momentum forward to even more successful CSM. I'm just going to say, like, if he is a wormhole candidate, like he's a wormhole representative that's currently on the campaign. If you're into wormholes, you should definitely have him on your list. Just because, again, you only have a limited number of slots, and there's more niches out there than there are slots available. And wormhole is a very important niche for representation. So all that said, I'm putting Mick on my campaign list. He's of the wormholers, I'm going to just off the cuff say that he's probably the one that's most valuable to get behind, because he's most valuable, or he's most likely to actually get across get across the finish line, because he's an incumbent. So I don't see anybody, probably the most successful wormhole CSM in history for advocate, and there has been really good advocacy for wormholes this last year, I would argue. So everything about this guy screams great. So let's go ahead and put him on our list. Maybe. Mick Fightmaster, right? I've only got one more slot. Hey, Drake. How's it going? Hey, there's Drake right there, by the way. Also vote for me before him, obviously. We're going to work on order afterwards. Right now, we're just putting things onto the list. Mike Azariah. Mike Azariah is huge. Look. I'm going to just say vote for Mike Azariah. Okay? He's a great dude. He has lots of experience. You can go watch plenty of things where he talks about his stuff. He's great for advocacy of all different kinds of play styles. He's a guy who advocates for high sec, but understands like the danger and like the balance between PvP and PvE. He has put in the work for this community for over a decade now. I'm just going to say that you should vote for Mike Azariah. Do I have him on here already? I do. You just posted your ballot on YM thread, by the way. Can you DM me it so that way I can pull it up? Hey, Aikawarazu Chan. Millen Arc Trooper is one of the most insane theory crafters in the game. He's applying for CSM to be the voice of the broader base of New Eden. The foundations of EVE Online are industrialist, mining, hauling, exploration. These activities feed into PvP and PvP. On the EVE Online's overall ecosystem, I would also like to be a voice for more intuitive UI design and concepts and more clarified minimum requirements for playing EVE Online. Millen Arc Trooper is a good dude, kind of crazy. Again, it's one of those things that I'll let you choose whether or not you want to put him on your list or not, because if you like him, you like him. If you don't like him, you don't like him. But at least his positions are well known. One of the things that's I will advocate for when it comes to Millen Arc, even though my list is starting to fill up, so I'm not sure if he's going to make it onto it. Like, you really do want people like him who think outside of the box to be in that NDA discussion, right? Because, like, there's so many things that he breaks after the fact that he could just break beforehand, and good ideas and brainstorming and stuff. He would be a fun person to inflict him on to the CCP. But, you know, he's definitely a wild card. Millen will likely get kicked off the CSM if he ever got on, not going to lie. I'm not You're not wrong. But I'm just not going to say he's bad to vote for. You know what I mean? Like, he's insane in like the best of ways. I'll put it that way. Okay. Neo Shocker, scary wormhole people. Hello, I'm Neo Shocker. I believe in faction warfare insurgency is of great importance for EVE Online player retention and new players to participate in PvP. Running for CSM focused on game balance, game mechanics, and quality of life. I mean, I like anybody who wants to be faction warfare insurgency supporter, but it really depends on what his positions on what makes it good and bad is. I know a lot of people that say that they're supporting faction warfare, and then I get their positions, and I'm like, I don't know about all that. One example relating to faction warfare and insurgency, which relates to standings penalties. Some ideas like harsher standings penalties within complex, reduction in penalties outside of complex, and further reduction of penalties outside of faction warfare and insurgency systems when engaging in friendly militia. So he's talking about AWOXing, which again, like I've thrown out my idea, but these are ideas too. EVE Online should use the tethering system with the complex. The central complex object will tether to the first number of the max pilots of the complex. Tethered militias receive full payouts. Nope. A little over-engineered to me. Neo Shocker would make a wonderful CSM member, and he's even a better friend. He's Young Puke's friend. I don't like him. Nikita Luciano. My goal in the CSM is to bring back EVE's depth of living history. I want every event to become part of the game's narrative. I mean, my problem with that position is that this like make EVE great again assumption acts like that isn't literally the case. Like they've actually put a lot of work in the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to make this statement true. So like to state it as if it needs to be true and it isn't kind of implies that you're not quite as dialed in on these events and plot line and storyline as you claim to be, right? Breathe life into forgotten mechanics and restore the principle of fair reward for risk, making every victory truly meaningful. I'd have to question them as to what is wrong with what is happening now, and in the last 2 years, compared to where they would want it to be when it comes to like events and stuff. Ship balances, deeper, more radical changes. I don't know about all that. Zero use modules and rigs. EVE has many modules and rigs that functionally are abandoned. For example, Capital Savage Tackle 2. According to Killboards, only 4 ships have ever died with it fitted. That doesn't make it bad, though. I mean, like, there are bad options. Like, space can exist for things that don't get used much. Because, like, one little change can suddenly make it the most useful thing ever. So, May T1, T2 BPs require nearly identical skill levels for new players. This lacks skill progression, discourages specialization, reduces variety of manufacturing choices. I don't know what he's talking about. Can anybody think of an example of a T1 and a T2 BP that requires similar or identical skill levels that isn't like one of the weird... Hold on. Now I got to check. So we're going to just go with Trimark. Medium Trimark 1 requires Industry 1, Armory Rigging 1. Medium Trimark Pump 2 requires Nanite Engineering, Hydromagnetic Physics. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. My opinion of him doesn't change that now. Wait, hold on. Millet will... Oh, yeah. He's very good at sounding smart without putting anything... You're talking about Millet still, I assume. Just because you don't like the person doesn't mean that they won't make a good CSM member. I mean, that is true, Dutch. Absolutely. But it all depends on why somebody doesn't like a person, right? Like, if I don't like a person because I don't like what they advocate for, then these are one of the same. It's not like I randomly don't like a person and then that decides my positions about them. My positions about them is what decides whether or not I like a person. All right. NTRO Cell 2. I'm Hispanic with many years of experience in EVE. Today's EVE is not the same as it was 5 years ago. All of these people are like, let's go back to the old days. In terms of content, mechanics, and gameplay, I want to bring those changes to Wormhole, where everyone in the community knows something more is needed. I want to support giving wormholes a distinct identity with mechanics and tools to make them unique. Let's not just make an area where there is no location and gates. Could be cool, but the problem is that we already have a wormholer selected in our voting mechanics, and the idea of 2 wormholers getting elected is insane. So, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to make it. On Scepter, currently I believe that there needs to be work in both HiSec and NullSec. NullSec is beginning to be very hard to make ISK with other capsuleers being competitive. So HiSec is only good to those players who have made 10 years or more and need a break. Wormhole space is a bit balanced as Pochfin. I just don't feel like I agree with that description of things. HiSec is definitely not only good to those players who have made 10 years or more and need a break. Also, is NullSec beginning to be very hard to make ISK with other capsuleers being competitive? I don't know if I agree with his premise. I'd nerf HiSec income even more by bringing ESS to HiSec. Okay, Jeff. The problem is, would people rate, like, how would the rating mechanic work? Like, there has to be a second half of that balance or design to make that make any sense. ONCE. Oh boy, that's a short thing. And almost no follow-up. Yeah, this person, unfortunately, I don't think they have much of a chance. HiSec crabbing for the win. I think that the best thing to happen to HiSec in a long time was Shadow Wars. The idea of like sites that you're encouraged to go do, but makes people go suspect. So there's a bunch of people running around in PvPvE ships that have suspect flags in HiSec was awesome. And not enough people talk about how awesome that was. Like, Shadow Wars was, in my opinion, by far the most interesting event that we have had in years. Orion Sasolo. Eve and its pilots helped me through the toughest part of my life. I want to give back by improving the game I love. I see room for more content, fresh objectives, and I'm committed to pushing for features that keep players engaged across every area of space. Well, I do appreciate that that sentiment. We'll see how useful they are as a CSM member. Orion. Flown with just about every region in New Eden. D tier FC, C tier nanopilot, B tier local trash talker. CSM that listens to every pilot. No Citadel can be neutral in faction warfare space. Put it on the line or join one or the other. I mean, not excited by that one. More carrier dread iteration, sure. More mechanics to prevent AFK plexing. The best prevention for AFK plexing is have active people killing them. An in-game abyssal marketplace for pilots yearn for the market. I can agree with that. More dynamic community events that draw pilots out of their usual systems and spotlight every career path. Sure. Little traction. Yeah. I mean, looks fine. Not sure if they're going to be a good standout person, though. Rose Alari. Hi, I'm Rose. I'm looking for CSM to improve player experience and improve some features that have been needed a lot. Oh, shit. I'm not even looking. I stopped putting up this. Player experience and improve some features that have needed a lot of love and have been ignored. From my time doing tournaments, talking EVE history, and doing large and small scale fleets, I want to improve the lives of line members and new players. From Goonswarm, once again, so major block candidate, something to keep in mind when it comes to your votes. Did anybody have, can somebody send me the Goonswarm voting slate? Hey, Ragtag. Rots from Out of the Blue. My overarching goal for me in CSM 20 would be the promotion of EVE Online to a player-based growth. I'm passionate about. One of the things that you can see here, that there's a lot of these campaigns are kind of the same generic, we need to shake things up and help new players, and like, and these are great positions to have, but like, we need to, like, somebody needs to be able to stand out to explain why their positions are going to be the more important positions. Not, again, not just because of the features that they suggest, but the kind of ideas that they have to see whether or not they need to be the person in the room when these things are being discussed. That's the thing I always go back to. Who do we need in the room when these things are being discussed? So, I am passionate about, wait. Oh yeah, the overarching goal for me in CSM 20 would be the promotion of the online player base growth. Many groups across all walks of space promotes healthy EVE fighting environment. I want to be part of ensuring a player base feels that they're getting their time's worth by downloading EVE Online. So let's go ahead and look at that one. Part of the following alliances. So lots of good names there. Black Legion, Red Legion, Insidious. So definitely has his bona fides. PvP, Alliance Logistics. Why are you going for CSM? Player-based growth, community engagement, updated Alliance and Corporation tabs, role-based system. This is stuff that have been talked about for years. Alliance tournament marketing and growth, renewed test server access, interesting position. Projection. Merc dens. I feel like merc dens are such a misspent opportunity. Oh my god. It's Ash gets phone call day. I just want my son to have one good day at school. At any rate, I struggle with the voting as I try to choose candidates based on what they do, not based on campaign ad. Well, I mean, yeah, we're going through all that. It's so Sawdeath, who's in the channel with us and been giving a lot of feedback. Sawdeath is running for the CSM this time. His focus is on planetary interaction, strengthening PvP motivation, bringing ideas to FPS-style gameplay in New Eden, one chance, one universe. So the one thing I will say about Sawdeath is that there's probably nobody on this list that's going to be more stronger of an advocate for Vanguard. I think that Sawdeath has been very active in helping shape Vanguard as part of their team and stuff. You know, definitely could have a place on CSM. I like you, dude. I'm not sure whether or not you're going to have quite as much traction as you need to get across the finish line, but I do absolutely salute your best efforts. Let's see how your thread went. Good feedback, actually. Yeah, so it is worth noting, like, if you like Vanguard, this is actually one of those really interesting situations. Because, like, Vanguard is pretty cool. And the vast majority of the player base has, like, a reflex negative reaction towards Vanguard for various different reasons. But it is something that's coming. And it's something that CCP is working on. And so positive and good feedback and knowledgeable feedback of something of that is something that CCP could very much use. So I think that Sawdeath would be a really good person to be on the CSM. And if you agree with me, then he is one of those people that is worth considering putting as your #1 position. Because no offense to him, he's in the channel and I like him. He's a good dude. But at the same time, he's the kind of person that will be eliminated before the points like slide over to him if not enough people put him in the #1 position, because he's a very niche candidate. So if you think that Vanguard is important, if you think that the shooter and its integration is important and cool, definitely consider putting Sawdeath on your list. Definitely consider putting him on the higher end of your list for that reason alone. That said, we'll see whether or not he actually gets in, but I wish him the best of luck and I appreciate him attempting to run. Styx from Dark, 23 years of continuous EVE experience, which no other candidate can match. I've done Wormhole Life Thing, high, low, null. Styx is an incredibly well-experienced member of EVE Online. I think a good chunk of the negative reaction is due to a certain type of people thinking Vanguard won't have any. A huge chunk of it is just people's knee-jerk reaction that CCP is focusing on something that isn't EVE Online explicitly. I'm not saying like, I'm just saying like the point of the matter is if you, without somebody explicitly being elected for that purpose, the chances that the CSM will consist exclusively of people that do not take Vanguard seriously is high. That's my point. Should a Vanguard candidate be more of a priority than a Wormhole or LOSA candidate? Well, again, that's the reason why I bring this up, right? If we do not have a Wormhole candidate, then there's a lot of other people on the CSM that will at least advocate that wormholes are important to pay attention to. If we do, just like with the API, right? Just with ESI and third-party developers and why it's so important to have a third-party developer advocate on the CSM. If you do not have an advocate for Vanguard on the CSM, then you run the risk of everyone in the room like actively not liking Vanguard, not just wanting to like not just willing to take it motivated or like be inspired by it, but like almost advocating against it, right? Because that's kind of the default position to a lot of people, especially the popular positions amongst big blocks in EVE. So yeah, I would argue that like if I could choose between a Vanguard candidate to be on the CSM and a Wormhole candidate to be on the CSM, right now I would argue that a Vanguard candidate would be more important to have on the CSM. It has a higher potential impact on EVE Online. And again, it's significantly more important for somebody to be in that room when they're talking about how all of this is going to fucking work, right? Either way. Okay, so Styx. Why is this stuff so short? He hasn't posted anything about... Like, I know this guy. I'm pretty sure I've interviewed him before. Man, I know this name so much, but now I can't like grab onto something about it. And there's nothing in this campaign. Well, yeah, so he's run for CSM several times. So I'm pretty sure I'm also in your channel. That's my tune. Styx, feel free to vote or not for me. I'll still tune in here. Okay, great. So Brad is Styx. Okay, great. No, I feel like, have I interviewed you before? Hold on. Why do I know your name so well? Nope, I have not. Why do I know his name so well? I feel, yeah, well, I mean, he's run for CSM before. My knowledge is based is pretty much the entire Eve game, 22 years in Eve. Again, one of those people that are very, very good for having just a ton of experience. I didn't do your interview shows like 2 years ago. Okay. Well, do you want to let me know why I know you so well then? No. But I would agree that a Vanguard CSM spot, once it's fully implemented, I think it's even more important right now as they're deciding how to implement it, right? But this is why I want like a counselor of planetary management. He doesn't respond there. Things I'd like to advance include making small fleet engagements viable and easy to have again, easier ways to find PvP engagements and able to play for like, say, 90 minutes and have fun actually doing something productive in game. But like, how would we make it more viable and easy to find PvP engagements? That's a good question. Having read that, you should probably read the next paragraph to see what's actually happening during the CSM term, in my opinion. I'd like to help new players in games so they stay and play. One of the many things I do in game is facilitate this, randomly drop cans of free stuff on gates just for my own entertainment and yours, because everyone wants free ISK and mods. This keeps just one new player playing. But doesn't that give them a suspect flag? Are you trying to give people random suspect flags? I mean, I appreciate that. Maybe because I've been in games since 1 week and you start seeing me. Yeah, I've definitely seen you around and doing stuff. Most candidates feel like they can push their CSM platform agenda items forward to the table when we know CCP already has a list of agenda items in place for the future CSM term, so most platform ideas candidates list may not even be touched during a CSM term. I mean, he's got a point. He's got a point. CCP is mainly looking for ways to improve the ideas that they have in development process. I want to help them in that capacity as much as possible, so the game idea that they have doesn't end tragically for the community. Also, at the same time, I feel that we together should ask to add things to the game timeline that we feel should be addressed as soon as that timeline is possible. So let me just ask you one question based on this line right here. Let's say you do get elected to the CSM. I didn't do interviews with you, so I'm going to just ask you this. You get elected to the CSM, you're in the table, and CCP goes, okay, we have, enough open for a minor feature for the next expansion. What should we do? What would be your answer if they just like came to you with that as an option? Like, let's say they come to you and say, okay, we do have a slot in our timeline for one priority. What is your priority, Brad? Gambling. That's not Brad though. That's not Strix. And when we do that, we will look at Sven Bauer from Pandemic Horde. I've gained experience across all of K-Space, from clawing for Sov as part of a 10-man alliance to helping coordinate. Brad says, I want crossover events like Doctor Who again. I loved that. You know what's great about that take and that answer? I am so... You know what? That answer is going to get you on my list, at least... You might get pushed off again because there's only one more slot, but I am actually going to recommend you based on that answer for a couple of reasons. Not because I think that the Doctor Who crossover event was like the greatest thing ever, and so oh my god, he's so right. But like, I challenged him for a position, and he came up with a very controversial position. A lot of these guys are all advocating for the same basic. Oh, we should prioritize fixing AWOXing. This guy comes up with something that is spot on, specific, and controversial. Like, not a lot of other people will be advocating for that. I think that's if that answer resonates with you, then he's worth considering your vote. He's run before. He's got some momentum behind him. Definitely worth considering. Because the thing is that like the Doctor Who event was highly controversial, but it was an amazingly good event. A lot of people really, really liked it. Yeah, you're probably going to get number 10 position. We'll see. We'll see if somebody knocks you out. But as of right now, we're going to put you in my number 10 position. I'm getting away with this because people like the Oz, in my opinion, doesn't need my vote. So, where is it? Where are you? There you are. Strix. All right. Back to Sven. We've got Sven from Pandemic Horde with lots of experience advocating for multiple balance and UI accessibility improvements that were just implemented in game. So here's the problem with this as a CSM campaign, okay? Like Sven's like, oh, look at all these things that I got done with the UI stuff, right? But like arguably that is actually an argument for why he doesn't need to be on the CSM. Wait, hold on. Yeah, that's an argument for why he doesn't need to be on the CSM because he's able to get things done without being on the CSM. But that being said, he is a content creator. And, you know, that's kind of a cheeky thing to say. So he's, I don't actually know very much about him per se, but a lot of his positions here look really good. More stuff with ACLs, more stuff with Skinners. Very good candidate in general. Looks like he's got a lot of momentum and good ideas behind him. Also accusations of using ChatGPT. He denies that accusation. Lots of back and forth in the discussion. So definitely a good choice for people. Even other advocacy from CSM people. So another good person that like could be a good person to vote for. And if you think that he's a good person to vote for, you might want to put him higher up on his list so he doesn't get eliminated early. But otherwise, looks pretty good. Teddy Shi. I'm running for CSM as I want to improve the state of the game. Okay. I have experience in many distinct parts of space, but most recently I've been flying in HiSec as an industrialist. Okay. That doesn't really give me a whole lot to say that I want to vote for you on. Who is it? Teddy. Long-time experienced EVE player, truly independent, focused on EVE industrialist, committed to being accessible. Eyes of an industrialist, but not as like a bigger group or like organization. I'm really concerned about somebody who's speaking about advocating for industry that isn't directly like putting things like corp projects and freelance projects as like their number one thing that they're talking about, because like the tools of corp management that corp projects allow for potentially is huge. And so any industrialist that's not talking about corp projects, I feel isn't necessarily taking it as seriously as I'd like them to. Oh, and he's got his own list of people to vote for. Teddy, Mike Azariah, Kashal, Angry Mustache, Oz, Angel Maelstrom, Bexy Songweaver, Millant, Onk, and Young Puke. So, yeah, I mean, pretty normal candidacy. Nothing's really jumping out too much for me. CSM elections make me feel like I'm back in high school student council elections. Yeah, basically. Everybody eat pizza. The Oz, I'm not even going to go into the Oz. I'm not going to talk about whether or not you should vote for the Oz. I will say that you should watch the Oz and all of the content that he makes, like his information about market and business and the finances and stuff is huge. The Oz report is huge. His work with the community is huge. He will almost certainly get voted in again. That said, if you vote for him, I don't blame you at all. He's probably one of the bigger names on the list. Thurman Jr. from Goonswarm. If I'm chosen for CSM, I will work hard to bridge the gap between visions of CCP and the gamer. We all want to see the success of the game, and I hope to make a mark in making it happen. will be useful to smooth out the onboarding into industry. It can be a bit daunting for newer players. I agree, but I think that like the future of industry on a corporation level is in corp projects. I'm a bit behind in the stream, but Vanguard will be dead on arrival. I don't think it'll tick over 50K of all-time players once it hits Steam. I mean, look, I'm not going to argue about whether or not Vanguard's a good idea or a bad idea. But like, you know, it is coming. We can talk about like we've had plenty of streams where we debate about Vanguard all the time. So we'll talk about that a different stream again. So, Thurman Jr. The problem is a lot of times that people that run for CSM, oh, sorry, the man, not Thurman. A lot of people that run for CSM under Goonswarm are either on the ticket or like trying to just get their name kind of talked about a little bit. Not necessarily taking it seriously because they know who's going to be supported or not supported by the Goonswarm ticket. But so he's been since 2007. Small gangs to large fleet battles, mining and ratting to gate camps. Shape the place where people are excited to play. Vast empty systems with nothing happening in them is a problem. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but sure. And like, yeah, no follow-up posts at all to his CSM thread. So even if every single person who viewed this post votes for him, chances are won't get past the first few cycles. 100% agree corp projects are the future. My corp has been using it since launch and it's made it easier. Man, we're going to be working on a new online tool that uses the API for corp projects to manage things. And it has so much potential. It's crazy. Oh my God, my dog needs to go out. Let's keep going. Let's finish this up. How many more people do we have? We're in V's. We're almost there. The Poos Moose. Hi, I'm the Poos Moose. I've been playing since 2008 and lived many playstyles. Finally settling in low sec, small mid-gang PvP. Has watched this alliance co-leader. Focus on CSM is rejuvenating old, clunky gameplay systems and mixing up the meta with frequent, consistent, balanced updates. Once again, fairly generic positions. Oh my God, dog, puppy. I can't take you out right now. Give me, like, a few more minutes. Okay. Where were we? Shoot. This has been a hard stream to manage. What was it? The Poos. Frequent ship balances, increase a variety of choices, provide new tools, reduce the pain of moving home stations. Fleet projection changes, not sure what that means. Structure, grid, grind, and safety. Faction warfare improvements to remain pain points, i.e. AWOXing. Again, people like to bring up AWOXing, but not necessarily sensible ways to fix it. I'm truly independent, beholden to no one but myself. Okay. I'd be quite cautious about buffing drones while PvE multiboxing remains as it is. I'm always willing to hear ideas, though. All right, up. All right. Drones get no love after CSP halves the benefits of drone interfacing. Okay, a bunch of arguments about drone stuff. And Young Puke advocating for him. In my world is a strike against him. Lots of discussion, though. Phantomite is also backing him. Lots of discussion. Lots of discussion. What is this? Non-stop ganking of everything. It's a non-issue. I mean, seems like a very I hate to say it this way, but almost like a generic kind of positions, low-sec, piracy, Gurgur, big, like, I mean, the fact that Phantomite and Young Puke backs them up is pretty much like the defining thing to know about it. Now, I'm not, like, Phantomite's fine. I personally don't like Young Puke for various reasons, but like that does zero in on the kind of things that he advocates for, that like high-end, low-sec, like conflict, could be fine, but again, this is a very crowded field, so I don't know about all that. Val Auroris from the Initiative, player since 2007, spent 8 years helping thousands of new bros in 2 major alliances, Init and Brave. 200-man SIG, co-founder with the most active PvP corps in ZKL today. I PvP'd in Null, Wormhole. I want to work with CCP to help make content more accessible for all, improve access to PvP for new players, and boost activity across empty systems of New Eden. Yeah, but like what? What do you mean? How are we going to make content more accessible for all? Huh? What does that even mean, Val? Especially when big groups being oppressive is one of the big reasons why other people can't get into things. If only somebody would campaign on consolidating the agency and air into Aura. I know, right? But again, like I don't need to be on the CSM to advocate for that. What qualifies me? I've been Nolan part of Init, which I enjoy, and it's awesome alliance. However, I don't expect votes just because I'm a member. Personally taught and mentored hundreds of new players. Can't be bought with ISK. My wife is super rich in game. I speak with almost everyone when it comes to any form of PvP below tie-dye fests. I'm a big believer in small changes can make large positive effects. I mean, again, this guy feels like a good, solid candidate. But at the same time, nothing strikes me as like the reason why people will coalesce behind him as a niche to vote for. He's a very accomplished player, though. If this guy gets in, it's going to be because of how like well known from. He's got a lot of people advocating for them, and that tracks. That makes sense. So the question is whether or not his popularity will help him push him over the edge. But if he is, then he's going to be almost certainly a very good CSM member, just in general. So it would not be a wasted vote for sure. It'd be probably a vote you'll be happy with. And there's enough motivation behind him, or momentum behind him to probably get something done. So he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. He does have a niche in the, he's from Singapore, right? So multilingual, you can tell by the post. That's actually really good. Hold on. Oh my God, please stop. Please stop calling me and ringing my doorbell. Hold on. Okay. Whew. They could more or less bring the faction warfare system to other parts of the game, gate behind contact acceleration gates. I mean, they kind of do that. Yeah, I like this guy's positions and stuff. Wait, where is the there was something about Korea, right? Or is it, well, he's Singaporean, right? The reason why I say this is because multilingual, like having more languages in the CSM is also extremely useful. Obviously, this is why the Russians like to get their candidate in. But yeah. Viola Terra, my candidacy for CSM 20 centers around new players with experience in wormholes, nullsec, and highsec. I aim to improve the base for new players while still aiming to keep the complexity that makes EVE what we all love and play, from Sleeper Protocol. Sorry. Viola? What? There it is. Started back in 2015. New player experience. I don't see new bros as temporary players. I see them as future FCs. Okay, cool. Affect the early game and onboarding experience. Encourages small-scale gameplay. Make EVE complexity more accessible without breaking what we all love. And play. Again, like, I don't... Like, these are good positions to have. But at this point, we really need to have tangible ideas about what that even means. Whether or not that means continuing the MPE that currently exists and storyline of that. More, there's one person that had the information of like more career arcs or epic arcs or, you know, whatever. Like, those are probably good ideas. If you're a new player being overwhelmed by mechanics, if you're part of a small group, very much a good person to have beyond there. But again, these are the kind of person that like the null blocks are also going to have their own candidates that are pretty specialized with working with newer players and stuff like that too. But overall, I think I really like them. I could be convinced to try to find a spot within my position for it. But we already have a lot of really good candidates on our list. Some traction on their thing. Yeah. Definitely probably a good person to consider voting for. YC127.10.27 from Laserhawks. It's his first run. The focus will be primarily on wormhole space and Pochvin, running for CSM 20. Make the experience for all players, old and new. So Laserhawks are obviously very powerful and important people in wormhole space. But we actually have the combined issue of I'm not convinced that Laserhawks is going to be seen as the best advocates for wormhole space, but also we have the guy who's already the incumbent from wormhole space. So while this guy would probably be pretty good, I don't know if they're going to have what it takes to get across, and potentially his success would be at the detriment of the other wormholer CSM guy that we were talking about earlier, whose name is eluding me right now. Was it Mick? No. Was it Mick? No. I think, yeah, it was Mick. All right. Yilfair, active in the Chinese community. I bring perspective of a new player, alliance leader, and fleet commander. I aim to represent voices and overlook Chinese-speaking players, smaller groups, and new pilots. Push for change to make EVE more inclusive and sustainable. I am actually really curious as to how much Fraternity is going to like rally to get their own advocates on. There's a couple of people that have been from Fraternity on here. So I suspect that Fraternity will have enough force to get one of their own members across, which means that there's going to be Chinese community support within the CSM, assuming that that is true, which makes this niche a lot less like exciting for people to get behind. Small alliance management, Chinese activity, small alliances. I mean, this is a good thing for people to listen to. Lack of LP wallet transaction history. There you go. It's buried, but that's I can't believe we don't have more people yelling about that. Yeah, this is another one of those people where like, I think that this person could be really good for the CSM, but I think that all of their niches are already kind of taken up by people that are more likely to get elected. There is quite a bit of traction in the comments. CCP dishonors their sandbox by corralling players into lawlessness. That's a take. Not from them. Vanguard. Tried it in Vanguard. I understand this concern very well. EVE's greatest strength has always been its sandbox nature, the freedom for players to build, destroy, and define their own stories. Whenever CCP introduces systems that feel too restrictive or push players towards a single behavior pattern, it risks weakening that freedom. Yes, but this is a delicate situation because like CCP can push players towards a single behavioral pattern, but as long as they allow for other behavioral patterns, then that like CCP can make the happy path and then people can choose to disrupt, accept, or reject that happy path. Resurrect the bounty system. Too late. Already done. Daily goals killed gameplay. I strongly relate to this. Daily goals can bring short-term engagement, but EVE is not a checklist game. It's a living universe. It can be both. All right. Well, that's enough of that. Young Puke. I don't like Young Puke. Don't vote for Young Puke. He's my one person that I'm going to say not to vote for, but this is a very personal thing, so you can take it however you want. My bias is clear. Zintage from Goonswarm. Current member of CSM 19. So almost certainly going to get elected by Goonswarm again. So fair enough. And that's it. That's all of them. That's all the guys. We went through all of them. Holy shit. So let's go ahead and Arrow is number 1 frat vote. Arrow Speed Bounty. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think chances are fraternity are going to get their representatives, which of course means that, not to be too like biased, but like that does mean that the Chinese community is likely to have a lot more representation from that than otherwise. All right, and now to round this up, let's go ahead and look at what Drake suggested. Remember, Drake is running for CSM, and we are going to vote for him, or at least I am. Here's Drake's selection and his options, or like reasoning. So Drake puts himself first, which is, I can no longer vote for Drake. He's just, that's just too, no, I'm just kidding. Of course, he's voting for himself first. IDR is next. Was extremely close to getting on CSM 19 until Seto smacked him off the 10th spot. IDR is a very well-spoken player who sat down at Fine Fest. He's very eloquent when describing issues and is not the sort of person that will stamp his feet if he doesn't get exactly what he wants. Great. Mick Flightmaster, which is on our list. CSP Jotun officially adopted me as his son. It isn't surprising. I consider Mick my wormhole brother. Very hard worker behind the scenes and very effective at canvassing both players and CCP devs alike. The Oz, again, these are no-brainer selections in a lot of ways. Industry and market. Young Puke 2, I get why you put him on his list, and I think everybody gets why I don't put him on my list, and we'll just move on. Kashal Aderon, new players are the lifeblood of EVE, and give them, without them, the game simply does not last into the future. Kashal is extremely well-respected new player representative. I would argue one of the most well-respected new player representatives, so great. The Poos Moose, the illegitimate love child of Phantomite and Grax Dex. Poos is a decent connection with the smaller factions of Lowsec and would be a good person when paired with Young Puke. I think that the problem with this argument is that I would argue that this makes this almost redundant. Young Puke has a lot of momentum behind him. He's almost certainly going to get elected in, and having a second one of them in doesn't really do anything. Dejuk, while he's a null rep, Dejuk is another good player, new player representative. However, he's also experienced with a wider variety of the game in most. So, yep, I think he's on our list too, right? He made it onto our list, right? Yep, he made it onto our list. Sven Bauer. Yeah, Master 5000. Sven is a very talkative player. Many solid ideas for balance and UI rework. Colitis, fellow Pochvin enjoyer, is a championing a lot of the same things that I'm planning on or have been working on, including other areas of space that is in Pochvin. Although, I would argue that that's a reason not necessarily to vote for him as solidly, because, like, Drake is getting in, so that's fine. No, we're hoping. And then runner-up, Angry Mustache. Angry is extremely detail-oriented and data-driven analysis and would be amazing to pair up with Oz and myself. Not on the ballot, as it is not on my ballot, as it's highly likely he'll get in already. I agree the same way. Angry Mustache should be on the CSM. I'm also not putting him on ballot because he's almost certainly going to be on the CSM. And then Ariel Wren, Lord of the ASI. Ariel Wren's going to be my top choice. So that said, let's wrap this up by going to the full list of who we've posted and put them in order. So Ariel Wren, number one choice. She is the API person, so I absolutely want them to be on. I'm going to put Mike as my number 2 position, just because I think that Mike brings a lot to the table when it comes to CSM. I think that any time that Mike wants to be on the CSM, he deserves to have a spot on the CSM with just the amount of work that every single one of these motherfuckers that are talking about being new player advocates, you know what they're not doing? Daily going between all of the new player systems and giving out free ships to those new players that are fit for PvP and PvE, which is what Mike Azariah is doing, while sitting in the rookie channel, helping out rookies. None of these other people that talk about communication is putting out like consistent weather and news broadcasts about what's going on, both while they were on the CSM and even after they were no longer on the CSM because they didn't get elected. Ain't nobody fight harder for the CSM than Mike Azariah. So I'm going to put him on my number 2 position because the idea of him not getting elected makes me queasy. My number 3 position. You know, I'm going to be motivated by what I said before. I'm actually going to put Sawdeath as my number 3 position because, you know, hopefully Ariel Wren and Mike don't need my vote as much. As I said before, Sawdeath is one of those people that I'm concerned he's going to get knocked out before the vote gets to him. So I want him high up on my list, but Ariel Wren and Mike gets those positions. So we're going to get Sawdeath in the 3rd position. 4th, I'm going to put on Drake Idion, just because I think that Drake is so good for the CSM that even CCP agreed. When he didn't get elected last year, he got brought in by CCP. And you know what? There's been a lot of work done in Pochfin. You may or may not agree with every single change that has been made. He's also, well, I mean, Mike Azariah did stop running for CSM because he got cancer. He had to stop working for the CSM because he got cancer. He then proceeded to beat cancer and then go back to working on the CSM. So there is that. Like I used to every day do my dailies for Project Discovery back when it was the original Project Discovery for his benefit, you know, for Mike. Anyway, so Drake Idion, I want him to get elected on his own power, so we're going to put him there. Next, man, I'm going to go with Kashal later on. Because again, one of those people that like, I'm actually surprised that they weren't on the CSM. So really good. We're going to go with Gustav Manfred, because content creator, and I've known him before. I think this is actually a pretty good list at this point, right? Because like I'm leaving for my last few people that are more likely to get in from other sources. But hey, if you need my my 9th position vote, more power to you, Mick. And then of course, Styx, you did manage to secure my 10th position. So there you go. Here is my total votes. Ariel Wren, Mike Azariah, Sawdeath, Drake, Kashal, Gustav, Dujek, Kane, Mick, and Strix. What are your guys' votes? Let me know in the comments down below or in chat or whatever. But remember, you have until the 10th of November to get your election in, and you can vote on every single one of your qualifying accounts. So if you are a multi-boxer, if you have multiple accounts, make sure you vote with all your different characters, so then you get all of the benefits of voting. 10 billion Giskin game buys my vote on sale until 10th of November. There you go. All right, so, and then I hit my submit. Wait, what? No! What happened? Why? Wait. God damn it. I should have written down who my people were. Now I got to try again. Okay, well, let's see if I come up with the same list twice. All right. Hold on. I remember okay, so my number 1 This is going to be a good test. Where is she? Ariel Rin? And then, oh God, who is my number 2? Wait, no, is Mike Azariah? And then, yes, I could do that. I could do that. This is more fun. I know Strix is on there, but, oh my God, stop calling. Parenting. So fun. Okay. What was there's one last oh, Mick. Okay. So now, I went with Ariel, Mike, Sawdeath, I think Drake, right? And then Kashal, and then Gustav. This is it, right? This was right. I think this is actually it. Is it going to work this time? I hate it here. What the okay. Hold on. All right, let's try one more time. Please, somebody tell me that this is not my fault and that there's actually something going on. I knew I was going to have to vote multiple times, but I thought it's because I have multiple characters. Isn't there a way to save your vote before you submit it? I don't remember. No, I guess not. Oh, I can sort them A to Z. Hell yeah. Ariel Rin goes first. Let's see. Strix is on here. Oh. And then Sawdeath. And was it Kane? It's Kane, right? And there's one more. Who am I missing? Who am I missing? Who am I missing? Is it Mike Azariah? Am I missing Mike Azariah? No? Now I feel like I'm going crazy. Drake. It's Drake. Okay, so Mike Azariah, Drake, Kashal, Gustav. Wait. Sawdeath before Drake. Sticks in 10th position. This looks right. This is close enough. This is close enough for government work. Let's try it again. Hey! Third time's a charm. Third time's a charm. So, like, if it does do that, what I did was instead of, like, going back or whatever, I literally just logged in again right there and then proceeded from there. So I don't know if there's something going on with, like, the way that the key is registered or whatever. But if that does happen, you just, like, log in right there. Don't hit refresh or anything. Just immediately log in and then refill it out and then put it in. And it should be good to go. So, yeah, that's it. And as part of this, all capsuleers that have Omega status and active accounts active for at least 60 days are eligible. And we get a SOCT Metamorphosis frigate, which will be claimable on the 10th to the 21st of November in the Nest store. So nothing right now. The voting being told to log in has been reported by multiple people. I experienced it too. There you go. Well, just, yeah. So if you got to mess with it and finagle it, then that's good. Write down your list ahead of time so you don't forget it. And the most important thing is to vote, because the CSM is actually really important. They have a lot of influence on a lot of things. I mean, even in this conversation, you know, I haven't really paid that much attention to the CSM this particular year, like who's on it, but we can even see like there are fingerprints on how the CSM has helped shape things in the last year. It is very important, and it's a cool thing that CCP allows us to do, to have like space politics. So participate, you know, be a good citizen, and do your civic duty and vote for the Council of Stellar Management. And yeah, let me know how you guys vote. And until next time, I don't know if I'm going to be streaming later this week. I should be. We still got lots of things. Excuse me, lots of things to talk about. Voting starts today. By the way, remember the Blood Raider final track starts tomorrow. So be ready to go. If you don't have 900 points, you might want to get there to be ready. But you will be able to earn the bonus track rewards for the Crimson Harvest starting tomorrow. There is some stuff on HoboLeaks. There's some new Skinner components, but they're all not published yet, so I can't show them in game yet. They are on Tranquility, interestingly enough, but they kind of are thematically, like the names of them and the looks of them look like they're probably going to be associated with the event. So I don't know. It is very possible that there's going to be some sort of pre-event before, the expansion. There's very possible some sort of pre-event to the expansion that's going to happen in the next, after next week. But of course the expansion is coming in, 3 weeks now? Yeah, just about 3 weeks to the expansion. So we will be paying attention to all that. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the channel. So that way you get the information as soon as possible, and we can help get this information out to more people, because my channel is all about making a more informed player base, and a more informed player base makes a better EVE Online, because this sandbox is our responsibility. I've been Ashrothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put EVE into context for you, my fellow Imperians. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and slogging our way through all of these different candidates. It has been really fun. I would like to know if this conversation has been useful to you in general about the CSM or the candidates, or if you have any questions, please let me know if this was a good video for you guys. And if it was, share it with some friends. But we got to vote before the 10th. I've been Ashrothi, the voice of New Eden, and I do want to give a special shout out to my top supporters, including my Immortal supporters: 745 MPSI, Arydanika the Queen, Bad Boy Smooth, Ebo Elite, Erladis, Elange, Flash Gordon, May, Malak, Starfire, Malin, Mercuton, Mayak, Neelim, LM1, Sheesh, Susuro, and Rid. Thank you guys so much, especially in these day and age, especially with the way that YouTube is going, especially the way that the world is going. Your support is more important than ever. So if you like what I do, thank you for sharing it. Thank you for liking it, but also consider becoming a supporter for only $1 or more, either as a member or as a patron. You get access to the emotes as a member and early videos, and access to the supporter chat. I'm here to talk to you and help you out wherever I can. But you can also pick up some merch, including this awesome Convocation Imperium's cup or mug. I've been Ashrothi, the voice of New Eden. And until next time, I'll see you in space.
Bring on every city